Hi, welcome back guys. This is your friend, the MHA What If with another fanfiction. This is the first part of What If Deku Inherited All Might's Power? All credits for this video go to their respective authors, so please support the real author. Check out the link in the description for more details. Please give this video a like and subscribe to the channel if you want more videos like this. Now let's get into the fanfic. You see what happens when quirkless losers try to be heroes, boys? An ash blonde-haired boy asked his two friends as they walked away from a dark green-haired boy their age lying down on the ground covered in scorch marks and scratches. The boy sniffled and covered his eyes with his left arm trying to cover the tears flowing from his eyes down his head. "Hey, are you okay?" The boy slowly moved his arm up to see a white-haired boy standing over him worriedly. "Why, I'm fine." "You don't look fine. Come on, give me your hand," the white-haired boy said, extending his hand to the boy on the floor. He sniffled and reached for his hand to stand up. "You want an ice cream?" "I'm not going to take no for an answer, so you might as well come with me," the white-haired boy said, grabbing the other boy's hand and taking him from the playground. They were into a nearby ice cream vendor. The man saw the two and smiled, waving as he greeted them. "Hello there. What can I do for you boys today?" the elderly vendor asked before noticing the bad shape the green-haired one was in. "Some mean boys beat him up. I want to give him an ice cream to feel better." "Then here you go, 2 scoops for both of you." The man grabbed 2 cones and put 2 scoops of vanilla ice cream in both of them while the white-haired boy reached in his pocket. The vendor noticed this and smiled, shaking his head. "No need, son. This is on the house." "Thank you, mister," the white-haired boy said, making the vendor smile and nod at them before both boys went back to the playground. They took a seat on a nearby bench to enjoy their ice creams, but the green-haired one sat quietly, eating his ice cream hesitantly. "What's the matter? Don't like vanilla? Why are you being so nice to me?" He jumped slightly at the question before shrugging. "I dunno, I just don't like seeing people upset or hurt. But if Kakin and the others saw you, they would have beat you up too," the boy said, beginning to cry again, making the white-haired boy sigh before softly punching his arm. "And you would have protected me from them, right?" "Yeah. Then it's fine because I would protect you from them too. Come on, buddy, cheer up and eat your ice cream before it melts." "Izuku Midoriya?" The white-haired boy looked at his new companion, confused, hearing him mutter something. "My name is Izuku Midoriya," Izuku said before licking some of the ice cream dripping down the side of his cone. "And my name is Hayato Kiryu. And starting today, I'm gonna be your bestest friend," Hayato said, affectionately wrapping an arm around Izuku's neck. "Gigantification? She looks like she'll be popular and it's an amazing quirk, but thinking about the damage to the city that'll go hand in hand with that, its use might be limited? No, but whether or not she controls the size." A familiar dark green-haired boy, now 14 years old, wearing his black middle school uniform, wrote into a notebook with "Eno" 13-inch written on the front of it after watching pro heroes take down a villain attacking the nearby train station. "Hey, wait, you're taking notes? You want to be a hero? That's great. You can do it." A balding older man with 3 diamonds, one on each side of his head, noticed his mumbling and writing, giving him a thumbs up. "Yes, I'll do my best." He smiled at the older man with a slight blush before feeling a hand on his shoulder. "Izuku, we're gonna be late." Izuku turned around to see a now 14 as well Hayato, dressed the same way he is along with his white hair in a spiky mess. He laughed sheepishly as he put his hero notebook back in his bag. "I'm sorry, but Kamui Woods was here and then a new hero called Mount Lady showed up and dash." Izuku's excited explanation was cut short by Hayato raising a finger and shaking his head in disappointment. "Once a hero otaku, always a hero otaku. Come on," Hayato said, wrapping his arm around Izuku's neck and making their way towards their middle school. As they made their way there, they began having a conversation about their upcoming entrance exam, with Izuku being the most excited about it. "Hayato Kiryu, he's been my best friend for 10 years. He didn't care that I was quirkless that day on the playground, and it didn't affect him as we grew up either. Kakin would still bully me and pick on me as we grew up, but Hayato was there to protect me from them, even if he wound up getting blasted by Kakin's quirk in the end. He and All Might have been the reasons why I've been able to hold onto my dream of one day becoming a hero. I don't know how I'm going to do it, but I'm going to pass UA's entrance exam and enter the hero course. Izuku looked at his longtime best friend happily as they made their way into Aldra Junior High and to their class to see everyone inside talking with their ash-blonde bully sitting in the row in front of them with a smug smile. They took their seats as their teacher walked in with a stack of papers in his hands. Alright, so first things first, since you're all third years, it's time for you to seriously think about your future. I'll pass out handouts for your future plans now, but you're all. The class watched as their teacher raised the stack of papers in his hand with a lot of the students activating their quirks as he did. Pretty much planning to go into the hero course, right? The teacher happily asked, throwing the papers into the air as the class began to cheer with everyone cheering. Yes. Yes. Yes, you all have wonderful quirks. I wouldn't call stretching your eyeballs out of their sockets or looking like you had a bad seafood allergy wonderful. Hayato thought, looking around, feeling his breakfast come up slightly, seeing the quirks of the classmates sitting right next to him. But using your powers at school is against the rules, so please don't throw us all in the same group. I'm not gonna be stuck at the bottom with the rest of these rejects. Hayato and Izuku chuckled, seeing their ash-blonde classmate look up at their teacher while offending the rest of the class at the same time. That was uncalled for, Katsuki. Yeah. You should all shut up like the extras you are. Katsuki yelled, laughing at the classmates all glaring at him. Oh, if I remember correctly, you want to go to UA High, Bakugo? Their teacher asked, looking at the clipboard on his podium. UA? The national school? Was the general thought among the students as all of them, save for Hayato, looked at Katsuki in shock. It was in the top 0.2% this year. I hear their acceptance rate is really low. And that's your all extras. I passed the mock test. I'm the only one here capable of making it to UA. I'll surpass All Might to become the #1 hero and leave all of you in the fucking dust. Katsuki yelled, jumping onto his desk, making the majority of the students look away, intimidated. Oh yeah, Midoriya wanted to go to UA too, right? Midoriya hid his face in his arms on his desk while the entire class erupted into laughter. Except for Hayato, who crossed his arms in annoyance, and Katsuki, who began to ball his hands into fists and grit his teeth in anger. No way in hell. Midoriya could never pass that test. Not in a million years, since all that loser does is study. Oh, you too, Kiryu? The entire class stopped laughing hearing this, while Hayato stood up from his desk. So you laugh at my best friend, but not me? UA took out that rule for their exam. You don't need to have a quirk to take their physical exam. You can enter by recommendation. Or by academics now too. Izuku's more of a hero than the majority of you combined. He has a better chance of getting in than I do, so if you have anything to say, go ahead and say it to my face right now. This was the button that needed to be pressed. Almost immediately, Katsuki jumped towards him and slammed his hand onto Hayato's desk, destroying it and also destroying Izuku's as well, sending him to the floor. That fucking loser is below them. He's quirkless. You think Deku could ever compare to me? Katsuki asked, glaring at Hayato, who stood his ground with a grin on his face. What about you, you damn speed freak? I'll take you out before you could even think about moving. Depends on how you see it, because last time I beat you. Hayato said, angering Katsuki even further before the entire class, especially Izuku, flinched hearing a vibrating sound. Enough, boys, I'll ask for 2 new desks. It's too early to begin a fight. Thanks for sticking up for me in class. Izuku said as after class, the two made their way back towards his family's apartment. I get where they were coming from though. Izuku, what was that lesson you taught me a long time ago? Hayato asked, shoving his hands into his pockets. Don't worry about what other people think. Keep your head up and plunge forward. Izuku yelled, throwing his fist into the air happily. Hayato nodded as they began to walk through a tunnel. Izuku began to laugh triumphantly before the two stopped nearing the end of it, hearing a sloshing sound behind them. The two turned around to see a blob of what looked like dark green sludge form with 2 giant eyes and a mouth. A villain? 2 medium-sized invisibility cloaks? I think the scrawny one works better. Izuku, run. Hayato yelled, pushing Izuku towards the end of the tunnel. Before he could react, he was suddenly hit by a whip made of sludge, throwing him into the wall as the sludge villain lunged for Izuku, grabbing him and beginning to force itself into his body. "Don't worry, I'm just going to take over your body. It'll only hurt for about 45 seconds. Damn it. Can't breathe." Izuku tried grabbing the sludge covering his nose and mouth only for his fingers to go right through. "You can't grab me, I'm fluid. Thanks for the help, you really are my hero," the sludge villain said as Izuku's struggling began to slowly stop. "I never imagined that was in this city. Let go of him." Hayato stood up and knelt down into a runner's starting pose. He began to vibrate intensely, catching the sludge villain's attention. Before he knew it, Hayato had disappeared and reappeared on the other side of him, with a giant hole where he had Izuku before, and the quirkless boy was now in his friend's arms. Well, you have a super speed quirk. I think I'll make better use of that instead," the sludge villain said as he effortlessly closed the hole in his body and tried lunging towards the boys again. But right before he could, the manhole cover the villain had come from before flew up into the air. "It's okay, young men." "Why?" The two looked in shock as from the manhole, a towering muscular figure with his iconic smile and blonde hair climbed out. "I am here. All Might," Izuku asked as the two watched their childhood hero dodge a whip like what had attacked Hayato before. He then ducked as the sludge villain tried grabbing him before he pulled his arm back. Texas smash. He threw his arm forward, punching the air and creating a blast of wind that made contact with the villain, making him explode. He quickly reached into his pants pockets and grabbed 2 empty soda bottles and dashed around grabbing all the sludge before they stuck the wall and floor. "Are you boys okay?" All Might asked, placing the 2 bottles in his pockets. "I didn't mean to get you both caught up in my villain fighting, but I was in such high spirits on my first day off in a new place that I started acting sloppy," All Might said, laughing while Hayato looked at him complete surprise and Izuku looked at him with stars in his eyes. Wait. Before Iliavik and I get an autograph," Izuku yelled at a pace baffling both Hayato and All Might, while he reached into his bag to take out his hero notebook. All Might laughed and took out a marker from his pocket and gave his oversized autograph in the book before handing it to the boy. "Well, I must be going. See you on the other side of the screen," All Might said, walking out of the tunnel and beginning to squat. "Pros are always fighting villains. I must not dilly-dally in case anything else happens, and I must deliver this villain to the proper authorities. But there are so many things I want to ask," Izuku thought, watching his hero prepare to leave. "Well then, thanks for your continued support," All Might yelled, jumping away, creating a big gust of wind. Hayato chuckled, walking out of the tunnel as well, looking as the shadow of All Might in the sky slowly vanished from sight. "Wow, to think we'd actually see All Might of all people. Come on, Izuku, let's dash." Hayato turned to talk to his best friend before noticing he wasn't next to him. He quickly turned around to see if he was still in the tunnel before the thought occurred to him. He turned to see All Might leaving again and noticed the faint sight of an extra pair of legs. "Izuku, you idiot!" Hayato yelled, grabbing his bag and Izuku's before taking off in the direction All Might was headed in a blur. "Let go of me. Your fanaticism is too much." All Might had already noticed Izuku had somehow grabbed onto his legs and was trying to make the boy let him go as they soared in the air. "If I let go, I'll die," Izuku yelled the best he could while the wind was blowing his mouth open. "I have so many things I want to ask you directly." "That's true," All Might said before grabbing the back of the boy's collar. "Well then, hold on tight and close your eyes and mouth," All Might said, making Izuku do just that before the #1 hero covered his mouth, coughing up a bit of blood. "Shit." The two landed on the roof of a department building with Izuku struggling to catch his breath and All Might beginning to leave. "If you talk to the people downstairs, I'm sure they'll let you down. I must really be going now." "Wait. No. I'm really out of time, I must be leaving," All Might said, ready to jump again. And in that moment, all of Izuku's childhood memories came flooding in. When he first saw All Might saving people, to when he was diagnosed without a quirk, to when his mother cried to him apologizing for his diagnosis. "All my life, people have tried to push me down because I have no quirk. Even if I don't have one, can I become a hero? Izuku asked with tears beginning to flood his eyes, stopping All Might in his tracks. Can even someone without a quirk be just like you? Izuku asked with his lips quivering, making All Might turn to face him with a smile. In his eyes, Izuku grew taller and his hair went from green to blonde as more blood began to drip from his mouth. He's just like I was back then. A steam-like smoke began to come from All Might, catching Izuku's attention. Izuku! The door to the roof slammed open as Hayato appeared from it, breathing heavily. Why did you do that? You could have been seriously hurt. Hayato yelled, trudging over to Izuku's side before noticing the smoke coming from All Might as well. The two watched as the smoke covered the hero's body entirely until in his place, a skeletal figure stood with blood pouring from his mouth. Where did All Might go? Where did All Might go? The two boys asked with Izuku in complete shock and Hayato without an ounce of energy left to react. I am All Might, the man said with more blood pouring from his mouth, making Izuku scream while Hayato decided to flop down to the floor from exhaustion. So that's about it. I battled a villain and most of my internal organs were destroyed. All Might said, raising his shirt to reveal a gaping scar on his left side to the younger boys. After the shock had left Izuku and some energy returned to Hayato, the number one hero decided to explain his sudden change in appearance, comparing it to someone flexing at a pool, and his time in the form everyone recognizes being limited to 3 hours a day from his near-fatal injury. Sorry you boys had to see me like this, I understand it must bother you. Actually, not really. Izuku said, speaking up for the two of them. You've been our hero for years, and knowing that even the best hero to exist has his own kind of low point is refreshing for some reason. But anyway, All Might, can you answer my question from before? Oh, if a quirkless person can become a hero? I'm sorry, but I cannot say, even without power, you can be a hero. All Might said, hiding his blue eyes with his hair. Izuku grit his teeth and looked down, nodding, understanding what his idol meant, while Hayato looked away, disappointed by his answer. I must be off, please don't write about this online or in any way. I would really appreciate if this wouldn't find its way into the outside world. All Might said as he made his way to the exit of the roof. He made his way downstairs before hearing the door slam open. Is that really all you can say to him? He looked up to see Hayato at the top of the stairs, beginning to vibrate. He risked his life to be able to ask you that question. He's dreamed his whole life of being someone just like you. Saving people with a smile on his face, a fearless smile that gives everyone hope they'll live to see tomorrow. It's been his life's goal, and you're just gonna stand there and tell him he's better off being a cop. I'm sorry, but this job isn't for someone like him. Screw that. He might not be faster than a bullet, he might not be stronger than a train, and he might not be able to jump over a building in one go, but Izuku's got the heart and courage to be a real hero. You're the person who inspired him, so why would you tell him that he has no chance to be a hero? Hayato asked, walking down to face his hero. I never told him he has no chance. I said that I cannot say that he can be a hero without power. It should be a given thought. All Might said, stopping Hayato in his tracks. What I witnessed in that tunnel was something else. You risked your life to save him, but you didn't notice why the villain caught him in the first place. Normally, a civilian would keep running as fast as their body could take them to safety, and where a hero could see a villain was after them. Instead, when that villain attacked you and slammed you against the wall, he stopped running and started heading towards you, even if it meant he could get taken by the villain so that you would have the chance to escape. I just assumed that he wasn't willing to show off his quirk, but to know he didn't have one, that was a moment of pure heroism to me. All Might explained, walking forward to the boy and placing a hand on his shoulder. And you? You remind me of someone I was once really close to, someone who jumped to the defense of his friends almost immediately. Now I'll see you boys around, but I must hurry and turn this villain in to the authorities. All Might said, patting his pocket, only to feel that it was completely empty inside. He frantically searched every pocket in his pants only to see that they were all empty. Shit! What happened? Hayato was answered by a loud explosion, and the two looked out a nearby window to see a colossal cloud of smoke in the distance. When your friend grabbed me before, he must have knocked the villain out of my pockets and he escaped. How could I have made such a rookie mistake? All Might said, beginning to run downstairs. Hayato ran back to the roof to get Izuku, only to see his quirkless friend was missing again. Damn it, Izuku. Meanwhile, where the smoke was coming from, the sludge villain was laughing as he was surrounded by fire and a crowd of civilians stood not too far away, watching him in fear. What's the matter, heroes? Too afraid to get involved? He asked, looking at the colossal woman and the man who looked like he was made of wood standing in front of the crowd. Damn it. I can't do anything without possibly hurting that boy. The wood hero thought as he focused in on what was currently in the middle of the sludge, a familiar ash-blonde boy trying his hardest to breathe while his arms were being used to shoot explosion after explosion everywhere. Fuck this asshole. What the hell was he doing in that random soda bottle in that alleyway? Katsuki struggled to get control of his arms, or even close his hands to stop the explosions. Now, you know you can't move your body as long as I'm in control of it. The villain said, moving an eye close to Katsuki's face. Fuck you. I swear, I want to blow your fucking ass to pieces right now. Kaken. Katsuki moved his eyes towards the crowd to see Izuku standing near the front, looking at him in pure horror. Deku? What's this shit nerd doing here? Kamui Woods and Mount Lady? Izuku said, noticing the gigantic woman shrink to the size of the woodman as they turned their attention to each other. Mount Lady, I need you to focus on evacuating these citizens and getting them as far as possible. I'll try handling this villain and rescuing the boy. But I thought your quirk wasn't that effective against him, especially with all the fire around. Shouldn't we wait for backup? Kamui Woods looked at the fire in the area before back to his blonde teammate. Sometimes being a hero means putting your own body at risk. Hearing what the wooden hero said, Izuku took a deep breath and closed his eyes. This is my fault. I knocked that villain out of All Might's pocket and now Kaken is being used to cause all this damage. I couldn't get to Hayato fast enough and I almost wound up like him, but Kaken, I can at least try to save Kaken. Izuku dashed past both heroes and jumped over and under the debris, keeping him from reaching the sludge villain. As he reached him, he extended his arms into the sludge, grabbing Katsuki's collar and pulling his mouth free. Deku! What the fuck are you doing? Katsuki yelled, finally getting oxygen into his lungs. You looked like you needed help. I wasn't gonna stand by and watch you die. Izuku yelled, smiling in fear at his childhood bully before seeing the villain turn his attention to him. You again? Well, not that Hi's not here to stop me, I wouldn't mind using your body either. The sludge villain said as he forced Katsuki's left arm to aim an explosion at Izuku's head. Haven't you heard? Don't look at bright light without protection. Izuku yelled, pushing Katsuki back and himself to the floor, making the explosion instead hit the sludge villain's eyes, effectively blinding him. Damn it. I'll kill you. Are any civilians hurt? Kamui Woods and Mount Lady turned around, hearing the iconic voice known across all of Japan, and shook their heads in response. They took a step back and let All Might, back in his muscular form, step forward to face the villain. You risked your life to save that young man, you incapacitated that villain using his own weapon. How can I deny that someone like you can become a hero? Katsuki and Izuku looked at the #1 hero in surprise as he suddenly appeared before them and effortlessly pulled the former from the sludge, and threw both towards the heroes behind him. Kamui Woods thrust his arms forward, causing them to become long tree branches, catching and wrapping around the two boys and pulling them towards him. Now I'm gonna make sure you go away for good. He pulled his arm back as blood began to stream from his mouth. Detroit SMSH. He thrust his arm forward as strong as he could, creating another blast of wind that blew up the villain yet again, but this time the air pressure created changed the weather and it began to rain, extinguishing all the fire in the area. You think Bakugo's gonna be pissed you helped him? Hayato asked as the two made their way to the Midoriya home. Following All Might's second victory against the villain, Katsuki and All Might were both interviewed by the press reporting on the incident, the former being praised for his bravery and resilience while the villain had him in his clutches by them and the heroes responding to the incident, while Izuku was being scolded by Mount Lady and Kamui Woods for getting involved when he shouldn't have. Hayato arrived minutes afterwards and the two decided to make their way back to Izuku's home to have dinner with his mother. Hey Deku. The two turned around hearing Katsuki's voice to see him walking up to them. Don't expect me to thank you or owe you for helping me out. If I had an ounce of control over myself, I would have left that bastard in pieces. Here comes the insults. The two thought as they saw Katsuki grit his teeth. But I partly take back what I said today in class. You've got something heroic in you, you bastard. Just make sure you stay out of my fucking way. Katsuki said, pushing past the two of them, continuing to his own home, leaving the two looking at him in surprise. And the next time you talk to me that way, speed freak, I'll kill you. Did Bakugo actually just thank you? I think he did. Izuku said before feeling an arm wrap around his neck. Good job today, I'm seriously proud. Everybody else might not see it, but you were a real hero to me today. Hayato said, ruffling his hair. It wasn't just you who saw it. The two watched as someone else appeared in front of them. This time, it was All Might still in his muscular form, running right in front of them. All Might? Izuku asked in shock as the hero began to laugh. How did you get away? All those reporters were interviewing you right now. That was easy. Because I am All Might dash. He reverted back to his near-skeletal state, spewing blood from his mouth, making Izuku scream. He wiped the blood from his lips and looked at the two. Young man, I come with an explanation, thanks, and an offer. Izuku looked at the two confused as Hayato let him go and took a step back. As I had explained to your friend before, what I said wasn't meant to discourage you. Anyone can be a hero, quirk or quirkless. Everyone has the potential within them to be a hero. Is it normal or safe for a quirkless person to be one? Definitely not. Having a quirk reduces the danger the job brings. Seeing how you ran into danger today without a second thought reminded me of my younger days. I guess you could say that you relit the flame dying within me since my injury. That's why I risked lowering my limit to be able to save you both. And for that I thank you. Why, you're welcome. But it was my fault for even making you drop him in the first place. It was my frustration of being quirkless that made me say all of that and get in the way of your hero work. Izuku said, looking down at the ground. He felt something hit the back of his head and turned around to see Hayato had thrown his hero notebook at him and was pointing to the man in front of him. But it was because of the timid and quirkless you that I was able to act and see firsthand. Your heart and courage. The top heroes always have stories from their school days, and they all share one thing in common, that their bodies moved before thinking. Hearing this, Izuku's lips began to quiver and his eyes began to water and he hung his head down, hearing his mother apologizing for him being quirkless in his head. Hayato smiled, seeing tears begin to stream down his best friend's face as he clenched his uniform shirt. The same was true for you too, wasn't it? Yeah. Was all Izuku could let out as he quietly sobbed in front of both of them. All his life he waited to hear these words, and to hear them come from his idol felt like a dream for him, but he knew that this was reality, that his dream could actually come true. I'm sure of it. You can become a hero. Izuku dropped to his knees and continued sobbing while All Might looked at Hayato, mentally shrugging. And for that, you are worthy of inheriting my power. Both boys looked at the hero in surprise as he took a step forward towards Izuku. What? Inheriting your what? Listen, young man. You need to decide whether or not you'll accept my power. All Might said, pointing at Izuku, uncontrollably spewing blood as he did. What is All Might saying? My power, young man. The press called it super strength and a boost, while I avoided talking about it during interviews with a joke. But the symbol of peace, All Might, had to be a natural-born hero. But young men, I'm going to tell you the truth. All Might explained before extending his arms to the side and looking up towards the sky. My quirk was passed on to me like a sacred torch. Your quirk was passed on to you? That's right, and now it's your turn. All Might said, lowering his arms and turning his attention back to Izuku. Wait a minute. It's true that your quirk is a mystery. Anytime you go online you'll see conversation over conversation about it. But I don't know what you mean about inheriting a quirk. Hayato face-bombed and All Might sighed as Izuku began doing his trademark muttering due to his confusion. Izuku, dammit. I may hide a lot of things, young man, but I don't lie. All Might yelled, snapping Izuku out of his trance. The power to transfer power. That's the quirk I inherited. All Might yelled, extending his hand forward as it began to shine brightly. I was crowned with one for all. One for all? That's right. One person cultivates the power and passes it on in a cycle that continues from one person to the next. All Might said as his hands stopped shining. It's the crystallization of power that spins together the voices of everyone who needs help with a courageous heart. Why are you giving me something that sounds so amazing? Izuku asked, looking at his hero confused. I've been looking for a successor, and then once I saw you in action, I thought it would be alright for you to inherit it. You were just a quirkless fanboy, but you more heroic than anyone else back there. All Might explained, making Izuku's eyes begin to water again. But it's up to you though. What'll you decide? All Might asked, only to see the boy wipe his eyes and stand up. He said all of those things to inspire me. He told me his biggest secret. Why would I turn him down? Izuku looked at his hero and nodded, now with determination burning in his eyes. I'll do it. That's what I'd hoped you'd say. All Might and Hayato said, smiling at Izuku. Excuse me, sir, how much do you charge to move garbage? Hayato asked, eating his breakfast, watching Izuku attempt to pull a fridge while All Might sat on it in his muscular form. It had been 2 days since Izuku accepted becoming All Might's successor, and now they were at the garbage-filled Dagoba Municipal Beach Park to build up muscles for the new one for all inheritor. Izuku gave a fake laugh before collapsing, after spending over 5 minutes attempting to pull the fridge. Considering how well you've done it, I'd say cheap. If you could move it even a little, this would be a little easier. All Might said as Izuku regained his composure. But you weigh 274 kilograms, don't you? Izuku asked, looking at his idol in shock. No, I've lost weight. I'm only 255 kilograms in this form now. Yeah, can't you see just how skinny he is now? He went from bodybuilder to in-shape dadbod. Hayato said, opening one of the nearby broken appliances and throwing his trash inside. But couldn't we just go to a gym if this is to build up my body? Izuku asked as All Might jumped off the fridge. This sort of training was All Might's suggestion after explaining that an unprepared body would explode if it were to receive one for all. We could, but moving this trash has a completely different meaning as well. You see, I spent some time on the internet and I found out that trash has been building up on this beach for many years. All Might said as he knocked the side of the fridge, leaving a giant dent on the outside. You see, heroes today are all for show. But the basics of being a hero is community service. He slammed his hand on the top and began pushing down, making it begin to compress. So, you will be moving and cleaning all the trash here as step 1 of your training. Izuku and Hayato looked at him in shock as the fridge became more and more flat. And clear the horizon for this part of the beach. He flattened the fridge entirely under his hand, blasting away the trash behind him to reveal the sunrise. Clean. All of it? Izuku asked, seeing the mountain of garbage surrounding them. Young Midoriya, you want to go to UA, right? All Might asked, looking at his new disciple. Yeah, because you went there. So I figured if I'm gonna be, then I might as well, and UA is definitely the way to go. Once a hero otaku, always a hero otaku. But, as I said, becoming a hero isn't easy when you're quirkless. And UA's hero course is the hardest one to enter. So, in the 10 months until our entrance exam, I have to have my vessel ready. Izuku said, realizing what All Might was trying to say. That's why I came up with this, my aim to pass, American dream plan. All Might yelled, taking out a stack of papers, handing it to Izuku. He quickly looked through the papers, reading it as quickly as possible. Even sleep schedules are set here. Frankly, this is a super hard schedule. Can you follow it? All Might asked, making the boy nod. I always knew I had to work harder than anyone else. I have to, otherwise I'll never be worthy of your power. Izuku said before returning to move more garbage. All Might then turned to Hayato, who sat watching videos on his phone. Young Hayato, you're not off the hook either. All Might said, grabbing the phone. But I'm not getting your power. Why do I have to move these? No, but I don't need a foresight quirk to see that you two will be partners. So I took it upon myself to ask another speedster for advice to make a training regimen for you. All Might explained as the two of them walked away from the garbage and to the actual beach. So before I explain it to you, explain your quirk to me. Well, my quirk was given the name Breakneck, and how it works is that my body uses my electrolytes to create what my grandpa called a kinetic zone that surrounds my entire body like a sort of suit. Depending on my electrolyte levels, I can go from being as fast as an Olympic runner to being as fast as a bullet. But the faster I go, the faster my electrolyte levels go down. Hayato explained, grabbing a rock and throwing it at the water, watching it skip over it. And that vibrating you did when we met, that's the kinetic zone? It's what I look like when I activate the quirk. I see, so your love for dairy, and why your breakfast was yogurt and a banana, is because of this ability? Yeah, I always do my best to keep my levels as high as possible. Well then, this is going to be your training. All Might said, using his foot to make a line in the sand as the two walked back towards the nearby pier. That line is 30 meters away. Really? I can cross that like nothing. But, you have to cross it in under 2 seconds. All Might said before quickly returning to the line and taking out a stopwatch. Ready? Bring it, old man. Hayato said, getting into the starting position again, beginning to vibrate. Go! All Might pressed the button on the watch and watched as Hayato lunged forward, appearing in front of him seconds later. That was definitely under 2 seconds. Wrong, that was 4.5 seconds. All Might said, showing the time on the watch, making Hayato groan in defeat. That bullet speed, that's what you could achieve if you put the work in to train your quirk. And once you pass the 2-second mark here, we'll increase the distance further and further until you can go faster than you ever imagined. All Might said, placing a hand on Hayato's head before turning to see Izuku struggling to move giant tires. Both of you will accomplish what seems near impossible right now, as long as you both put your faith in me and yourselves. Tashinori Yagi, known worldwide as All Might, walked down to Dagoba Beach. It was 6 a.m. on February 26th, the day his disciples would be taking their entrance exam to UA High, and he began reminiscing about the past 10 months. Izuku Midoriya, the boy who would inherit his quirk, had made amazing progress. The boy who could barely pull a fridge 10 months prior was almost done cleaning the garbage from the beach. By the first month, he had grown accustomed to his new sleep schedule and his new diet. He spent every moment that he wasn't moving the trash on the beach doing some sort of exercise. Whether it was 100 push-ups from the moment he woke up, bicep curls as he studied and did his homework, or using a hand grip in class. He had seen this boy who could rival him in his true form become a fit and muscular young man. However, he had doubts whether or not he was ready to accept his quirk. Only time would tell if he was finally ready. Hayato Kiryu, on the other hand, was a different case. While Izuku had quickly grown accustomed to his training regimen, the original training plan was built for someone with a different kind of speed quirk than his. When he learned Hayato was a speedster, he reached out to the hero, Ingenium, for advice to help build his plan, but within the first week he realized that he overlooked what Hayato had told him about his quirk. He cannot maintain his top speed for long due to it draining his electrolytes. Ingenium's quirk and Hayato's could be viewed as two different racehorses, with one made for running long distance and the other made for bursts of speed, and he could never reach the goal he had made for him because his body couldn't keep it up. So once he managed to fix the plan for him, Hayato began to improve as the new exercises he made him do helped him to maintain his top speed longer while also increasing how fast he can go. I hope those boys are ready, he said to himself before hearing a loud scream. He ran forward, pinpointing it coming from the beach, only to see it was his successor standing at the top of the remaining tower of trash, sweat dripping from his face and body while Hayato sat at the bottom of the tower in a similar way. Oh my goodness. He blew up into his muscle form, seeing every last bit of litter that once plagued the beach was now gone, even from other parts of it than where he instructed him to clean, and the sunrise clearly visible. Izuku fell forward and All Might ran forward to catch him before he hit the ground. Well done. All Might, I did it? Izuku said weakly before Hayato made his way down to them. And you, young Kiryu? All Might asked, putting Izuku down. Hayato reached into his pocket and took out a speedometer and handed it to the hero. Amazing! This speedometer was a special one that All Might had asked for, that would clock Hayato's fastest speed and for how long he maintained it, whether he held it or Hayato did. And currently it read 150 kilometers per hour, and that he kept that speed for 8 seconds. You've come far, young Kiryu. But now, it's time for young Midoriya to inherit the powers of One for All, once and for all. How do I get your power? Izuku asked excitedly as his energy slowly but surely came back to him. All Might chuckled and reached into his hair, pulling out a strand and holding it forward. Eat this. Both boys looked at him with a mix of confusion and disgust, making their idol break into laughter. Well, you need to take in some of my DNA, and this is the only thing I could think of since you boys need to go and get ready. Otherwise, you'll be late for your exam. Well, through the lips and past the gums. Izuku gulped as he reached for the strand of hair and put it in his mouth, attempting to swallow it at once. Instead, it got caught on the saliva on his tongue and halfway down his throat, so he began to violently cough while Hayato went to get him a bottle of water. Wow, I'm finally here, Izuku said as he stood in front of UA High, mentally preparing himself for their entrance exam. He took a deep breath as he quickly relived the past 10 months and clenched his fists, remembering how he spent hours every morning moving the garbage off the beach and even helping Hayato with his exercises. Don't stand in front of me or I'll kill you, Deku. He turned around seeing Katsuki walking towards him, and he began to frantically wave his arms around. Good morning. Let's both do our bests and hope we make it in. By the time he finished, Katsuki had already walked past him and was nearing the entrance. Izuku decided it was time to stop standing around and get a move on, before taking one step and tripping on his own leg. But before he hit the ground, he felt himself stop midair and looked to see a girl with brown hair with her hand on his arm. She helped him stand up straight and brushed some dust off him before giving him a reassuring smile that made him blush slightly. Sorry about that, it's my quirk and I know I should have asked you, but I didn't want to see you fall since it's bad luck, you know. You're here for UA's exam, right? All Izuku could reply with was a nod. Let's both do our best. She walked away towards the entrance, leaving Izuku there blushing. Statue hero, Izuku, let's go. Izuku snapped out of his trance, feeling something grab his shoulder, to see Hayato next to him and pulling him to the entrance. It's the voice hero, Present Mic. Wadash, Izuku was cut off from having one of his fanboy moments by Hayato quickly covering his mouth with his hand while both of them and Katsuki sat together, listening to the explanation of their practical exam. For once, I'm fucking glad you did that, Katsuki said, earning an agreeing sigh from the speedster. As it says in the application requirements, you listeners will be conducting 10-minute mock urban battles after this. A blonde-haired man with his hair spiked up into an arc wearing what looked like punk rock clothing explained as the screen behind him went from showing the UA logo to showing 7 different areas on it. After the presentation, you'll head to the specified battle center, okay? Silence. Okay. In other words, they won't let you work with your friends? Katsuki said, noticing that on his ticket and on Izuku's, both of them had different test locations, with the former being sent to Battle Center A and the latter being sent to Battle Center B. Why, you're right, even though our numbers are consecutive, we're assigned to different battle centers. Izuku said, noticing that his ticket was 2234 and Katsuki's was 2233. Yeah, I got sent to C. Hayato said, noticing that he got sent to a different battle center as well. 3 different types of foe villains are stationed in each battle center. You earn points for each of them based on their level of difficulty. Your goal is to use your quirks to earn points by immobilizing the foe villains. Of course, attacking other examinees or anything unheroic is prohibited. Present Mic explained even further as the screen showed a pixel version of him attacking the fake villains. May I ask a question? Yes. Present Mic pointed at one of the people sitting in front of the 3, letting one of the lights shine down on him to reveal a blue-haired boy wearing glasses holding up a piece of paper. On the printout, there are 4 types of villains. If that is a misprint, then UA, the most prominent school in the country, must be disappointed in themselves. We examinees are here in this place because we wish to be molded into exemplary heroes. He turned around and pointed towards the 3, mainly at Izuku. In addition, you over there with the curly hair. You've been muttering this whole time. It's distracting. If you're here on a pleasure trip, then you should leave immediately. To this, Izuku hid his head in shame while everyone else began to laugh. Sorry. At least he kept it as quiet as possible. You're talking louder than our proctor down there and his quirk amplifies his voice. So what's your excuse? Sit down before you embarrass yourself more than you tried embarrassing him. Hayato said, quickly jumping to his best friend's aid, making everyone redirect their laughter towards the other boy. Okay. Examinees 7111 and 2235, relax. Thanks for pointing that out. The fourth kind of villain is worth no points. It's an obstacle, so to say. Present Mike explained as the symbol for the fourth villain appeared on screen. There's one in every battle center and they go crazy in narrow spaces. They're not impossible to defeat but not something you should try to. I recommend you all try to avoid it. That's all from me. Before you go, let me just present you with our school motto, Go Beyond, plus Ultra. Mock battles? How can everyone be so confident? Aren't they nervous? They even have equipment to go with their quirks. Izuku said, looking at the crowd in front of him. But then he remembered that both Katsuki and Hayato were taking their exams nearby as well, so he slapped his cheeks to snap himself out of his trance. He looked forward and noticed the girl from that morning standing in the front taking deep breaths. But before he could go towards her to thank her, he felt a hand on his shoulder and turned around to see the boy who called him out earlier standing behind him in what looked like a marathon runner's outfit. He's here too. That girl appears to be trying to focus. What are you doing here? Are you taking this entrance exam to mess with everyone else? The boy asked, glaring at Izuku. He began shaking his head and waving his arms frantically to deny the accusation. No, that's not true. He looked to see the crowd smiling at how he was being reprimanded by the other boy. I just want to thank her for helping me out this morning from an embarrassing situation, that's all. And that friend of yours, the disrespectful one? Oh, Hayato meant nothing rude by it, he's just always been like a protective brother to me since we were young. Izuku explained before they heard Present Mike yelling. Start. Come on, there's no countdown in being a hero. What's that saying? The die has been cast? Get a move on, kiddies. The gates opened and the crowd ran inside to start gaining their points. As Izuku ran inside, he remembered what All Might had told him once he managed to swallow his hair. The quirk should be in his system after 2 to 3 hours and that using it will have physical repercussions. Then suddenly the wall next to him shattered and from it, a green robot burst through and towards him. One pointer. Damn it, it's coming right at me. And that's a point. Hayato laughed as he ran right through a 1-point enemy at his exam field. He fell back slightly, feeling lightheaded, before reaching into his pocket and placing a handful of raisins in his mouth. Can't stop now, I just hope Izuku hasn't frozen in place yet. I'm frozen in place. After having been saved from the previous 1-pointer by another examinee, Izuku continued ahead to try to gain some points himself, but every villain he came across was either already destroyed or in the process of being destroyed. But once he had arrived to the area where the most examinees were, the 0-pointer Present Mike had told them about had appeared, destroying the top floors of the buildings in front of it and throwing it towards them. Most of the examinees, including the boy from before, began running away while Izuku stayed where he stood, as if he was frozen in place. Less than 2 minutes left. Only 2 minutes. I don't even have a single point yet. Izuku yelled as he finally felt some feeling in his legs to run away. At least that was the plan, until he heard someone cry in pain. He looked forward to see the cloud of dust subsiding and the girl from before trapped under the debris. It's my quirk and I know I should have asked you, but I didn't want to see you fall since it's bad luck, you know. The very words she told him that morning when she saved him from falling were playing on repeat in his head. So in that moment, instead of running away from the 0-pointer, Izuku made a break towards her. But the next thing he knew, he was flying up into the air and towards the robot's head as he balled his hand into a fist. Smash! He threw his arm forward and into the robot's head, completely destroying it, and the damage began a domino effect all across its body as everyone below watched him in shock. And unbeknownst to all of them, They were being watched on camera by the faculty of the school who all of them, save for All Might who was there watching as well, they all looked as he obliterated the robot in one hit with the jaws of most going agape while the others cheered. It activated. I have a quirk now. Izuku's glee was quickly cut short as gravity now took effect and he began to plummet down to the ground. As he did, the adrenaline left his body and he now felt the pain of both his legs shattering from the jump, and his right arm shattering and even being cut from the punch, and now all of them were flapping in the wind as he fell to his doom. Damn it. All Might warned me about this. I need to break my fall in some way. A Detroit smash. If I aim a punch at the ground, I should be able to create enough air pressure to cushion my fall, but if I do it too early or too late I'm going to die. Damn it. Hayato, where are you when I need you? Meanwhile, Hayato and his fellow examinees were dealing with their own zero-pointer as well as a swarm of 1, 2, and 3-pointers that was now crowding them all together. He looked up seeing the zero-pointer was beginning to crush buildings and fling the debris, making him take a step back. All Might once told me of a hero that was so fast that he unraveled a tornado. What if I push myself as fast as possible to make one? It wouldn't be strong enough to destroy that thing, but it should be enough to block the debris and clear up some of these things? Hayato looked around seeing everyone else trying to make a dent in the swarm to escape, but to no avail. He balled up his hands into a fist and got into a starting position, activating his quirk as he did. I don't have a second to even think if it's gonna work, I'm just gonna have to try. Hayato took in a deep breath and began to run around the crowd of examinees as fast as he could, feeling the wind begin to kick up. After a few seconds, he felt himself begin to slow down before he reached into his pockets and threw in all the snacks he could. I don't have a second to waste. He pushed himself harder than he ever had in the past few months, and began to try to run faster and faster around the crowd who looked at him in amazement as the wind began to spin with him, until they were all protected by a wall of wind that was picking up the debris and robots and throwing them around at the swarm of robots and at the zero-pointer beginning to destroy it. But after about 30 more seconds, the wall diminished, and Hayato slid out of the circle he was running in, without a shred of energy left in his entire body. No time to lose. Izuku winced, feeling like he slapped mid-air as he was only meters away from the floor now, only to stop right before he did. He looked to the side to see the very girl he risked his own life to save floating on a piece of a villain struggling to put her hands together. Release. She pressed her fingertips together and almost immediately, both her and Izuku touched the ground. As soon as she took a breath, she covered her mouth feeling extremely nauseous, only to end up vomiting on the floor. I need a point, but I can't move, Izuku said to himself, trying to move with only his left arm. And time's up. Izuku looked up in horror hearing Present Mike announce the end of their exam before hitting his head on the pavement. I didn't even get a single point. Damn it. Izuku said as he felt tears begin to well up. He moved his head slightly, hearing the crowd around him talking about what he had just done. Wow, he took that thing out in one hit. But if he had a reinforcement quirk, then why does he look like that? He should have just run away. What was the point? They're all missing the point. He didn't jump in the way to try to score points. He did it to save that girl. The boy from before thought to himself as he studied the now heavily injured Izuku, the broken zero-pointer in the background, and his savior currently regaining her composure on the robot part she was on. He jumped without hesitation and would have done the same thing if this wasn't an exam. Wait, exam. The boy clenched his fist, trying to reassure himself that he would have done what Izuku did, before the realization hit him. Good job, everyone. I'll give you all some candy for doing such good work right now, but first let me attend to this young man. A small elderly lady wearing medical gear walked past the examinees and towards Izuku, who was mentally beating himself up for not getting a single point. His quirk did this to him? It's almost as if his body wasn't used to it. She bent forward and gave the boy a kiss on the back of his head, making his legs and arm glow green as inside them the bone shards came together and quickly healed back to normal. Who is that old lady? That mademoiselle is the backbone of UA. She's the school's licensed nurse, the youthful heroine, recovery girl. She's the only reason this school is even allowed to have such a dangerous exam. A blonde-haired boy wearing a bedazzled shirt and a colossal belt around where his navel was located introduced Recovery Girl to the group as she gave the girl who helped Izuku some gummy bears. Wait, of course. If that's the case, then that boy. The boy looked at Recovery Girl and Izuku and nodded his head as it finally dawned on him. A week following the exam, Izuku sat in his living room following dinner, using his hand grip while his phone was in his other hand, with a look of disbelief evident in his eyes as he thought that he had blown his one chance to enter UA and become a hero. He knew that he had barely passed the written exam from scoring himself, but the 0 he got from not destroying anything else but the giant robot cancelled out the score he had received on the exam. Not only that, he had been trying for a week to get a hold of All Might to talk to him but to no avail. Izuku, honey, is Hayato alright? His mother walked up to him and placed a hand on his head, lovingly running her hands through it, snapping him out of his trance. He's fine, he's waiting on the results. I see, they should be here today or tomorrow, right? Yeah. The fact you even took that test makes me proud of you, Izuku. I only hope that both of you make it in. She planted a kiss on her son's head and walked out to get the mail as Izuku turned on his phone screen, seeing a picture of him and Hayato from Halloween over 10 years ago, with both of them dressed as All Might. When he had left his practical exam area, he found out about what Hayato did, making the mini tornado to protect his fellow examinees from the attacks in the last 2 minutes. But such a risky move without the practice had completely left him without electrolytes in his body, and all Recovery Girl could do was give him fluids to replenish at least some of them to protect his heart and muscles. He put his hand grip down and looked at his slightly scarred fist now, clenching it as tightly as possible. I let you down, All Might. I let you down, Hayato. I'm sorry. He snapped his head to the left, hearing his mother call his name only to see her sprawled on the floor with a letter in her hands. They're here. Izuku stood up and hesitantly grabbed the envelope from his mother's hands, taking it to his room and placed it on his desk. He gulped and ripped open the letter, only for a small disc-like object to fall out and light up. I'm here as a projection. He pushed his chair back, seeing the light form into a screen with All Might wearing a bright yellow suit in front of the UA logo. All Might. But this is from UA, isn't it? I had a lot of paperwork to do that wound up eating up all my time. I'm sorry I couldn't contact you. Actually, I moved to this town to work at UA. Izuku looked shocked as on the screen, a hand appeared motioning for All Might to speed things along. I have something I need to tell him. It'll push everything back. Okay, then I got it. Even if you passed the written exam, you got 0 points on the practical exam, so that means you didn't pass. I knew it. Izuku hung his head down and grabbed his pant legs in defeat, feeling his eyes well up. That is, if that was all there was to it. I'd like to show you something. All Might took out a remote and turned on a nearby TV screen, showing the girl who had helped him that day walking into a room. Excuse me, the girl said, walking up to present Mike. She came directly after the exam to negotiate with us. All Might explained, pausing and then continuing the video. The boy with green curly hair and freckles, is it possible for me to give him some of my points? Izuku jumped slightly hearing her request. I heard him saying that he needed to get at least 1 point, so I figured he probably didn't get any. Hearing this, Katsuki's insults about him being useless for being quirkless from when they were growing up replayed in his mind. At least the points he missed out on for saving me. He saved me and got himself hurt doing it. Please, he deserves at least that much as a thank you from me. Now, not only do you have a quirk, you inspired that girl, the same way you inspired me all those months ago, probably even the same way you inspired young Kiryu as children. All Might paused the video again and turned his attention back to the camera/Izuku. The entrance exam wasn't graded on just how many villains you destroyed either. Izuku jumped up again as All Might resumed the video. I'm sorry, but even if you ask, you can't give him your points. But don't worry, there's no reason to give him any. Present Mike said, pausing the video yet again. What kind of hero course would reject someone who's willing to risk their lives to save others? This is a job that requires doing just that and doing the right thing. You are also graded on rescue points. They're points given to you by a panel of judges. It's the other basic ability that we at UA look at. All Might yelled before the screen showed the scoreboards, revealing Izuku came in the top 10 on the test. Izuku Midoriya, 60 points. Izuku's eyes widened seeing the points as a photo of the girl appeared. And Achiko Uraraka, 45 points. All Might looked at the camera and gave a thumbs up towards his disciple. You both passed. This is unbelievable. Izuku said as his lips began to quiver and the tears from before began streaming down his cheeks, this time from happiness. Come, young Midoriya. This is your hero academia. Izuku nodded and looked at his action figure of All Might and the photo of him and Hayato again, this time with pride. Hey Speedy, you up? Hayato sat up in bed, his body still partly sore from his exams, as his grandfather walked into his room with the same envelope in his hands. What's this? Your acceptance letter, what else? The elder Kiryu said before running his hand through Hayato's hair. I'll be sure to call your parents and let them know. I haven't been accepted yet, I find out once I open this envelope. Hayato said as he opened the letter. He found the projector and placed it down before the projection started for him. I'm here as a projection. Hayato and his grandfather were taken aback by the sudden appearance of the number 1 hero on the projection. I hid the truth from you both, but I actually came to live in this town as the new heroics teacher at UA. But that's not why I'm here. I'm here to talk to you in regards to your scores for your exam. You passed the written portion, but that practical portion? It was incredible. The last time I had seen moves like that was when I trained under the retired hero, Gran Torino. But especially those last 2 minutes, that was a sight to behold. I saw your potential in that cyclone. No, it wasn't a big one, and it definitely wasn't something worth writing home about, but the way you did it was heroic. You risked your body giving up on you to create a wall of wind that would not only protect your fellow applicants, it would use the enemy against themselves. All Might explained as he played the video they had recorded of what Hayato had done, pointing out how the wind was knocking the debris back into the zero-pointer and into the robots around them as well as other robots into one another. That was amazing, and altogether you gained 30 villain points and 40 rescue points. Hayato clenched his blanket tightly, feeling tears beginning to stream down his face as well. You passed. Now come, young Kiryu. This is your hero academia, and I look forward to seeing you and young Midoriya grow into amazing heroes. What was that you said, you hadn't been accepted yet? Well, how's that for an answer? Hayato's grandfather smiled as he pulled his grandson in for a hug while he happily cried into his chest. I'm so proud of you. I did it, we did it. Hayato grabbed the back of his grandfather's shirt tightly, feeling himself begin to cry harder as all the years of protecting Izuku and reassuring him that he would be a hero had finally caught up to him. Man, this place is so big. Izuku ran through the halls of UA High as his first day at the school finally arrived. He finally arrived at the door for his classroom. Ah man, I hope I'm not in the same classroom as the scary people. Izuku immediately thought of Katsuki and the boy from the entrance exam as he began to slide open the door. Take your feet off the desk. Huh, don't you think that's disrespectful to the UA upperclassmen and the people who made the desk? Both of them were here, and the blue-haired boy was already beginning to get into with Katsuki, who sat with his leg on the desk. No. What junior high did you even go to, you side character? Katsuki asked with his usual smug grin. I attended semi-private academy. My name is Tenya Ida. Tenya said, introducing himself to Katsuki. Semi? So you're some kind of fucking elite, aren't you? I'm gonna have fun stomping you into the ground. Katsuki said, intimidating the taller boy. Stomp me into the dirt? And you actually want to be a hero? Tenya asked in pure horror before both boys noticed Izuku standing in the doorway. Then the whole class turned their attention to him, causing the usually timid boy to jump slightly. Good morning. I'm from So Dash. It's all right, I heard. Izuku said, raising his hand to the boy as he walked over to him. I'm Midoriya. Nice to meet you, Ida. Midoriya, you realize there was something more to that practical exam, didn't you? Tenya said, gritting his teeth. And I didn't. I hate to admit it, but you're better than me. Sorry. I actually didn't realize anything. Izuku thought before feeling a tap on his shoulder. He turned around to see Hayato standing behind him with a banana in his hand. Hayato. You. I made it too, buddy. All Might didn't tell you. Hayato said, finishing up his fruit. Izuku jumped him for a hug, making his best friend wince in pain. Izuku, buddy, I'm still sore in some places. Oh, I'm so sorry. Izuku said, letting him go and noticing the slight limp Hayato had. Oh, you're the loud guy from the test. Hayato said, walking into the classroom and noticing Tenya standing nearby. I'm from semi-private academy, my name is Tenya Ida. Hayato Kiryu, sorry for the harsh words back then. Just don't like when people pick on my best friend. Hayato said before limping over to his seat. Oh, that curly hair. You're the boy from the exam. Izuku turned around to see that Achiko had just walked in, happy to see him. That punch you did was awesome. I mean, it was nothing. Thank you for trying to split your points with me. Izuku yelled, covering his now red face with his arms before quickly bowing to the girl in front of him. How did you know about that? Achiko asked as it hit her what Izuku was talking about. Oh, if you're here to make friends, you're in the wrong place. The four standing at the front of the class looked behind Achiko and Izuku to see that, currently in a yellow sleeping bag on the ground, a pale man with long black hair laid looking at them. Achiko, Izuku, and Ida all froze from shock while Hayato made his way to his seat. 8 seconds for you to be quiet, you need to work on that. This is the hero course, time is limited and kids these days are so irrational. The man said as he unzipped his sleeping bag to stand up. A teacher? So that means he's a pro hero too. Except I've never seen anyone as worn out as him. Izuku thought as he studied the man from head to toe, from his all-black clothing to the odd scarf around his neck. I'm your homeroom teacher, Shota Aizawa. Nice to meet you all. Aizawa said, introducing himself to his class. The entire class jumped slightly as they were all in the dark as to who their teacher was going to be. He lifted up his sleeping bag and reached into it, pulling out a blue tracksuit with white markings becoming a U around the collar and an E on the waist. It's kind of sudden, but put this on and head out to the field. A quirk assessment test? Was the general reaction from the class as they all stood across from their teacher, all dressed in the tracksuit he had shown them before. I hope none of you were expecting anything traditional from your first day. The selling point of this school is how unrestricted we can be with our methods. That's how we teach, and that's how you're all going to learn for the next 3 years. Besides, you kids have been doing this since junior high, right? Aizawa said, taking out a phone to show 8 different exercises. All those physical exams where you were banned from using your quirks, we're gonna change it up a bit. Bakugo, you finished at the top of the practical exam, right? Aizawa asked, getting Katsuki's attention. In junior high, what was your best result for the softball throw? 67 meters. Katsuki said as he crossed his arms, trying to remember the best he could. Then, try doing it with your quirk. Aizawa said, taking out a softball from his pocket and throwing it over to the boy, who caught it with one hand and walked over to a shot put ring behind his teacher. Do whatever you want, just stay in the circle. Now hurry up, and you better give it everything you've got. All right then, Katsuki said, stretching his arms. He looked forward and entered a pitching position. D. Katsuki pulled back the best he could and threw the ball, boosting it with an explosion. D. Izuku asked himself quietly as his expression deadpanned, watching the ball skyrocket into the distance. Always know your maximum as a starting point. That's the most rational way to form the foundation of a hero. Aizawa said as he turned to face his class, showing Katsuki's score as 705.2 meters. The whole class clapped from amazement as Katsuki walked back to them, with a victorious smile on his face. 705 meters? Seriously? A boy with orange blonde hair with a black streak across said as he took a step back. This looks so fun. A pink girl with pink hair and horns yelled as she happily jumped from excitement. This looks fun? You have 3 years here, are you sure you're gonna keep that attitude the entire time? Aizawa asked, making the class tense up, quickly draining their excitement from them. All right then, whoever comes in last place after all 8 tests will be judged to have no potential to be a hero. And as a result, the punishment will be immediate expulsion. The entire class screamed from shock while Hayato closed his eyes, feeling a sharp pain in his legs. We're free to do whatever the hell we want with you kids. So welcome to UA's hero course. This might be a little difficult for me, Hayato said as he reached into his pockets to take out a pair of pills and threw them into his mouth. For you? Hayato, I can only use one for all at 0 or 100%. Izuku whispered into his best friend's ear. Hayato sighed and elbowed Izuku hard into his stomach area, immediately knocking the wind out of him. Mr. Aizawa, Izuku's not feeling so well, so I'm gonna take him to the bathroom, Hayato said, grabbing Izuku while their teacher just waved them off. The two quickly made their way out of sight from the class and Hayato pushed Izuku against the wall. What the hell is the matter with you? With me? You just hit me in the stoma dash, Izuku yelled as he took in a deep breath. Hayato covered Izuku's mouth to keep him from yelling further, not noticing their blonde mentor was hiding from them as well, watching them in the distance. Izuku, we made it this far. Are you going to give up on me now because you're worried about getting hurt? Hayato asked, making Izuku shake his head. I brought painkillers because I didn't want to let you down. We have 3 years here. If you're gonna chicken out day one, then you might as well grab one of your hairs and shove that quirk back down All Might's throat. He removed his hand from his best friend's mouth. You're my best friend and All Might chose you as his successor. You're the smart one out of the two of us. Figure it out if you don't want to go home on a stretcher, Hayato said, tapping Izuku's forehead. He began walking back while Izuku looked at his right hand. How do I manage to do this? Izuku asked himself before following Hayato back to the class. Alright, so the first test is the 50-meter dash. Ida and Kiryu, to the line, Aizawa said as the two rejoined the group. Tenya and Hayato nodded at each other and walked over to a track and went into the starting positions. Ready? Get set. Hayato chuckled and activated his quirk as a camera on a tripod at the end of the track counted the two down. Go! Tenya and Hayato took off, with the former running as fast as he could in that short distance, reaching the end almost immediately. But what shocked him the most was that when he crossed, Hayato was already standing in front of him with a victorious smile. What? 1.15 seconds. 3.04 seconds. The camera announced as the class looked at Hayato in shock. Hayato held up a peace sign to the group and began walking over, leaving Tenya staring at him in pure disbelief. Impossible! A spiky red-haired boy said as Hayato walked past him and to Izuku's side. I can only go third gear for 50 meters, but he was on a completely different level. Tenya thought to himself as he walked back into the group, letting the exhaust ports on his calves cool down. They were in their elements. Next, Bakugo and Midoriya, Aizawa announced, making Katsuki and Izuku walk over to the track and ready themselves. Ready? Get set. Izuku gulped as he could feel the bloodlust emanating from Katsuki. Go! Both boys took off, with Katsuki holding his hands back and Izuku running as fast as he could. Let's see how you bastards like my explosive speed. Explosions began firing from Katsuki's hand, propelling him into the air and forward, crossing the line as the camera recorded his time. 4.13 seconds. Then Izuku crossed, beginning to breathe heavily. 7.02 seconds. When I use both of my hands, the force disperses, but Deku could be screwed, Katsuki said as he looked at the smoke coming from his palms before looking at the already exhausted Izuku. He shook his head, letting out a growl while Hayato chuckled. Someone's worried about you, Hayato said quietly to himself before placing a handful of raisins in his mouth while their teacher called over the next pair to run. If I may ask, why do you keep food in your pockets? Hayato turned around mid-chew to see a girl with long black hair tied into a spiky ponytail looking at him. Oh, my raisins? They're my energy snacks. Hayato quickly gulped down what he had in his mouth and took out the small red box that held his snacks in from his pocket. Energy snacks? The girl asked, confused at the box of raisins being held in front of her. I gotta refuel, we have a lot of tests coming up and I can't risk losing power during any of them, Hayato explained, putting the box away. Yayorozu, Uraraka. Come on, you're up, Aizawa said, making the girl nod and walk over to the track. You talk to a girl? Izuku Whisperer yelled to Hayato, who looked at him confused by his excitement. Izuku, I can handle talking to one. Just keeping the conversation is what's tough, especially with one as pretty as her. Hayato said, putting the box away in his pocket. Following the 50-meter dash, the class continued with the next 3 exams: grip strength, long jump, and repeated side steps. And currently both Hayato and Katsuki were confident in their abilities as they kept scoring among the highest in the current exams. But the one concerning the two, even if Katsuki could never admit it, was Izuku. Restricted by his fear of hurting himself or using too much power with One for All, Izuku currently held one of the lowest scores. Only a completely invisible girl was doing worse than him at the moment. But he knew that the 5th test, the softball throw, was his saving grace. If he could score high enough on this, he would be safe from the expulsion punishment. Even with the long-distance run, sit-ups, or seated toe touch, he knew that a test involving strength was perfect for him and One for All. Uraraka, throw. Achiko nodded and walked up to where Katsuki had thrown the ball from earlier, and threw the ball, watching it climb higher and higher into the air. Aizawa nodded and showed the screen on his phone, revealing the score was reading infinity for the girl. Infinity? Whoa, that's awesome. Achiko blushed and nodded sheepishly at the praises from her classmates. Midoriya, go. Izuku nodded and walked up, grabbing the softball and holding it in both of his hands. It's now or never. I came too far to let All Might, Hayato, and Mom down. Izuku readied himself and took a deep breath, activating One for All. It doesn't look good for Midoriya if he continues the way he has. Tenya said, earning a worried nod from Achiko, making Katsuki chuckle. Of course not, he's a quirkless loser, you know? Katsuki said, making Hayato grit his teeth. Quirkless? You mean you don't know what he did during the entrance exam? Tenya asked, confusing the boy. Huh? It's about time, huh? Aizawa looked at Izuku, grabbing his scarf as the boy closed his eyes. I won't let you down, I'll become a hero. Izuku's arm began to glow as the power of One for All surged through it. He reeled his arm back as he remembered when All Might chose him to be his successor, when his mother congratulated him for being accepted to UD, and when Hayato had met him in the playground all those years ago. But when he threw the ball, he was shocked to see it land only meters away from him. Beep, I swore I activated it. I erased your quirk, that's why. Izuku turned to his side to see Aizawa, now the complete opposite of how he looked before. His hair flowing upwards, his eyes glowing red, his scarf was now flowing up and spread out more, and under the scarf rested a pair of gold goggles around his neck. Damn that test, it's clearly not rational enough when even a brat like you got accepted. You erased my quirk? Izuku asked himself quietly before it all came together for him once he laid eyes on the goggles. You can erase people's quirks just by looking at them. I know who you are. The Erasure Hero, Eraserhead. Eraser? Never heard of him. He's an underground hero. He tends to avoid the spotlight compared to other heroes because he thinks it gets in the way. Hayato said, earning the attention of his classmates. From what I saw, kid, you can't control that quirk of yours even if your life depended on it. Aizawa said as he walked over to the boy. You want to break everything and have someone else save you again, don't you? And no, sir, that's not what I dash. Izuku was cut off by Aizawa's scarf extending, wrapping around him and pulling him closer. Whatever your intention, I'm saying that's what others around you will be forced to do. Aizawa said, keeping his glowing eyes focused on the boy. It doesn't matter if you're as courageous as they come and the most selfless hero out there, you'll be utterly useless if you become a ragdoll after saving only one person. Izuku Midoriya, you can't become a hero with that power of yours, you'll only end up being a liability. Mr. Aizawa? Aizawa turned his head hearing Hayato call his name. I've known about his quirk for a long time. If I can, I'd like to have a moment with him. Do whatever you want, just make it quick. Aizawa said as his scarf and hair went back to normal and his eyes stopped glowing. Hayato rushed over to Izuku's side and pulled him away. But whatever you do, that kid is a lost cause. He has no potential whatsoever. What's the matter? Hayato asked, putting his hands on Izuku's shoulders. Mr. Aizawa's right, I can't control this power. If I try to go 100%, then he's just gonna erase my quirk again if my arm doesn't shatter again. Izuku explained, making Hayato sigh. I keep visualizing what All Might told me and it just doesn't work. Izuku sighed while Hayato crossed his arms and raised an eyebrow. What did All Might say? He said to remember the feeling I had when I activated it for the first time, like an egg in a microwave and trying to keep it from exploding. And when was this? Izuku tensed up, remembering that after he had been accepted, he had met All Might at Dagobah Beach to discuss being his successor and controlling One for All. The only problem was that the meeting was supposed to be a secret and Hayato had no clue. Well, Izuku? It was before school started, but I just can't seem to control it no matter how much I try. He said to remember the feeling and that it's the secret to controlling this awesome power. Izuku explained, making Hayato sigh. But Izuku, remember that you and All Might are two different kinds of people. How he controls One for All is different because he's been with it for decades, you've only had it for a little over a month. Hayato said, placing his hands on his sides. When you first activated it, what happened? Well, I felt like this BZZT or whoosh feeling and dash. Izuku was stopped by Hayato raising his right hand to stop him. Not what you felt, what happened? Well, I put all the force I had into my legs to jump into the air. And then I put everything I had into my arm to punch the villain, and next thing I knew I was falling with all three broken. Izuku explained, making Hayato nod. You put everything you had into your legs and they broke. Then you put everything into your arm and it broke. You see the problem? Hayato said, earning a nod from his best friend. You're too impulsive, you haven't had the kind of practice to put that kind of force on your body. But I don't have any other way to control it. Alright, then let's see it like this. Your body is a fighter jet and it shoots the most destructive and powerful missiles. The triggers to fire them are extremely sensitive, so you can't slam your finger on it, otherwise you'll fire everything you've got when you don't have to, and you can't press it too softly, otherwise nothing will fire. Forget controlling it with your feelings. Control it with what you have up here. Hayato said, poking the side of Izuku's head. Once the pilot up here knows what it's doing, then you can leave it to the guy down here. Hayato moved his finger from the side of Izuku's head and down to where his heart was located. But All Might dash. Izuku, you're not All Might. Don't force yourself to be like All Might. Hayato yelled as he pulled his best friend closer by the collar. The student isn't the teacher, so don't try acting like him. Hayato let him go and began making his way back to the group. Don't force myself to be like All Might and use my brain? Izuku asked himself as he picked up the softball. Whenever you're ready, Midoriya. You have 2 more turns. Aizawa said, making Izuku nod and ready himself to throw the ball again. He reeled back and threw the ball, trying to push the power of One for All into his body again. But yet again, the ball landed as far as it did the last time. I didn't do it that time. Did you let me get into your head or what? Sorry, sir, I just had a lot on my mind. One more time. Aizawa said as Izuku grabbed the ball once again. He closed his eyes and readied himself one last time, focusing the best he could on using his quirk. I used too much the first time, and Mr. Aizawa erased my quirk. I tried using too little and I wound up using nothing. What do I do? Izuku closed his eyes and reeled back, ready to throw the ball. Wait, if I use it all on my arm then I'm going to break it? But what if I focus it at the last point of contact as I throw the ball? My fingertip. Izuku felt the power of One for All surge throughout his body and into the tip of his index finger. He threw his arm forward, throwing the ball with all his strength and rolling it off his finger. The class looked on in shock as the ball skyrocketed into the air, blowing a gust of wind behind it that sent everybody backwards. What kind of monster is this kid? Aizawa asked as Izuku's new score came in, seeing it was 705.3 meters. Who's a ragdoll? I've got the power to keep going. Izuku yelled as he hid his now swollen finger from his teacher. Aizawa couldn't help but smile in disbelief before watching someone dash past him and towards Izuku. What the fuck was that all about? Aren't you quirkless, you little a-dash? Katsuki extended his hands forward, explosions sparking from his palms, making Izuku scream in fear. But before he could reach him, Aizawa's scarf had gone and wrapped itself around him, effectively keeping him in place. Damn it, don't make me keep using my quirk. It gives me dry eye. Aizawa yelled, revealing that he had once again activated his quirk, before pulling the boy back to the group. He sighed and deactivated his quirk, taking out a bottle of eye drops and placing one drop in each of his eyes. Alright, I'm not gonna waste my breath to explain how the totals get calculated. I'm just gonna show the results. It's just the totals of all the tests added together. Aizawa said as he held his phone flat to project the results for the quirk assessment. Izuku took a deep breath and looked at his currently bandaged hand. Lucky for him that Hayato had more painkillers with him to numb the pain from using one for all before. The remaining tests all went as he expected. He did well on the sit-ups and seated toe touch thanks to the kind of workouts he did with all might. Only the long-distance run gave him a hard time from already feeling extremely exhausted. He looked up and read the scores, smiling at the results. Quirk Assessment Test 1. Momo Yayorozu 2. Shoto Todoroki 3. Katsuki Bakugo 4. Hayato Kiryu 5. Tanya Ida 6. Fumikage Tokoyami 7. Mezoshoji Nane. Mashareo Ojiro 9. Ejiro Kirishima 10. Mina Ishido 11. Achiko Uraraka 12. Koji Koda 13. Izuku Midoriya 14. Tsuyu Azui 15. Yuga Aoyama 16. Antasiro 17. Denki Kaminari 18. Kyokujiro 19. Hitoshi Shinso 20. Toru Hagakure. Oh, and I was lying about expulsion, by the way. The entire class went quiet and looked at their teacher in shock as Aizawa revealed his lie to the class. It was all a rational lie to get you to use your quirk the best you could. The entire class, save for a few, let out a scream of shock, especially Izuku. Of course that was a lie. It should have been obvious if you thought it through. The girl Hayato talked to before said, looking at her classmates in disbelief. It wasn't obvious, was the consensus thought from the bottom 5. Midoriya, is your finger healed? Tenya asked as he caught up to the green-haired boy after school. Izuku nodded and showed his currently bandaged finger, making the taller boy smile. You know, I was really taken aback by Mr. Aizawa. I thought this school is the best of the best, but to encourage your students on a lie? How absurd. Tenya said as the two began walking towards the school gates. Hey, you two, going to the station? Wait for me. The two turned around hearing running and saw Achiko was making her way towards them. Uraraka? You're the girl who scored infinity. Tenya said as the girl happy caught up to them. I'm Achiko Uraraka. And you're Tenya Ida. Achiko said looking at the blue-haired speedster. And you're Deku Midoriya, right? Deku? Izuku jumped hearing his childhood nickname come from her mouth. But that's what Bakugo called you during the test, right? Well, my name is Izuku, but Kaken gave me that name to make fun of me as a kid. Izuku explained while hiding an embarrassed blush from his two classmates. He gave you a name to insult you? Tenya asked, placing his hand on his chin. Oh really? I'm sorry about that. It just sounded really cute. Achiko said, making Izuku's blush take over his entire face. I'm Deku then. Izuku yelled, surprising Tenya while Achiko smiled at him. You're accepting it too early. Wasn't that an insult? Tenya asked, making Izuku hide his face before a thought crossed his mind. Oh, Midoriya? Igriagaye? Your friend, where is he? Tenya asked, making Izuku revert back to normal, realizing what he was referring to. Hayato went to see Recovery Girl to do something about his muscles still aching. Izuku explained, making Tenya sigh. Oh, your friend is so cool. How long have you known him? Achiko asked as they continued making their way off campus. Well, he's been my best friend for over 10 years now. Izuku said, making Achiko squeal in delight. He's a speedster like Ida, right? Yeah. But I'm curious, when he did the 50-meter dash with me, he crossed in a second. But when we did the long-distance run, he was so much slower than he was before. Tenya said, making Achiko think back to that exam and nod as she remembered Tenya overtaking Hayato in an instant, the complete opposite of the very first test. Well, you see, Hayato's quirk can be seen in very different ways. But when it comes to how he maintains his speed is like a car. The faster you make it go, then the more gas it burns. Hayato can reach top speed instantly, but he can't keep it up for long. Izuku explained as he pointed at a car that zoomed past them when they made it to the sidewalk. But I heard that he ran so fast that he made a wall of wind during his practical exam and kept it up for the last 2 minutes. Tenya pointed out, making Izuku nod. He could, but look what forcing himself did to him. It's been over a month and parts of his body still aches. His quirk damages his body more than people understand if he pushes himself. How so? Achiko asked, getting her face close to Izuku's, unknowingly making him blush from his timid nature. You know what electrolytes are, right? I've heard of them, but I dunno what they are exactly. Achiko said, looking up in confusion. They're an extremely important mineral in our bodies. They carry an electrical charge that act like a sort of battery to everything in our body systems. Tenya explained while Achiko feigned understanding, while in reality she had completely zoned out when he started talking. Well, the way his quirk works is that his body takes the charge from them and basically charges up his muscles. But the problem is that when you start having less and less, your body starts failing. Your blood doesn't clot and it becomes more acidic. If you have a wound, then your body can't make new tissue to make scars, but the worst part is that they help send nerve signals across your body and your muscles start acting different. Izuku explained, making Achiko and Tenya's eyes widen. They can't contract, so moving your legs or arms or any muscle would be impossible or difficult, and the danger from that comes from our hearts being a muscle. I always tried keeping him from making a mistake like that because the last thing I ever wanted to see was my best friend running so hard that when he stopped, so did his heart. Thank goodness Recovery Girl helped him get more than enough back that day. Now he's just suffering pain from overexerting himself to that extent. You two are really close, huh? Achiko said, smiling at Izuku, who returned the smile. The closest. I am entering like a completely normal person. All Might yelled as he made his way into the 1A classroom. The class lit up and smiled as he proudly marched to Aizawa's podium. He really is a teacher here. The orange blonde-haired boy said as the #1 hero smiled at the class. And his costume is from the Silver Age. It's so outdated but iconic at the same time, ribbit. A green-haired girl said as the class noticed All Might's red, white, and blue costume. Alright then, it's time for some basic heroic training. And to kick off the year, we'll be meeting at Ground Gamma. But of course, this is a heroics class, so you will all need these. All Might yelled as he took out a remote, making 4 panels come out from the wall with 5 boxes being held inside each one, except for the 4th one that was currently holding only 4. Inside these cases are your first hero costumes based off the applications you made before the year started. Get dressed and I'll meet you all there. The weird thing is I didn't see a costume for young Midoriya. His number is 18, isn't it? All Might waited at the entrance of the mock city. He would proctoring his first lesson in. He heard the gates open and watched as Class 1A proudly marched in, all dressed in their hero costumes. But what caught his attention the most was the last one who came running in, sporting a bright green tracksuit with a face mask and what looked to be rabbit ears on the head, and he knew immediately it was his successor. Of course, he realized the odd design on the face mask was to be a mock of his smile, and the rabbit ears were to be a mock of the tufts of his hair that stood up. He couldn't help but cover his mouth to mask his laughter. So obvious. Wow, Deku. Talk about sleek. I probably should have been more specific with mine. All they gave me was a skin-tight bodysuit. Izuku looked to see Achiko running towards him, sporting a pink face shield and a black and pink bodysuit that highlighted her curves. Lucky for him, the face mask was hiding the fact the majority of his face was now red. I think it looks good on you, Achiko. The two turned to see Hayato walking towards them, wearing a white leather bodysuit with yellow gloves and boots. So cool, Hayato. It's the opposite of Ida's. Achiko pointed out as Tenya stood nearby, wearing white knight-like armor for his costume. I'm built for speed, so I need to have a suit that works for speed. It looks like leather, but it's actually a material that protects my body from friction, and it has a meter in the cowl that checks my body's status. Hayato explained, pointing at a piece of his costume resembling a black hood in the back, before snickering at his best friend's design. You're not fooling anyone, bud. But it was nice that your mom was the one who made it. Hayato said, patting his back. And the colors? Because of your hair. Achiko asked, earning a shrug. I dunno, my mom was always against a color scheme like this. Something inside me thinks it works. Hayato said before reaching behind his head and putting the cowl on, now hiding his eyes behind white lenses while the majority of his face was covered by the black cowl. All Might noticed this and gasped as he envisioned a yellow cape on Hayato's body and his body growing slightly in terms of muscle and height. He looks just like him. Alright, so now that we're all here, it's time to announce today's lesson. We're going to be partaking in battle simulations. We're going to break this class of 20 into 10 teams of 2. One group will be acting as villains hiding a bomb, while another will be acting as heroes working to capture them. Now, reach into the box and we'll split you all up into your teams. All Might reached behind him and took out a red box with a hole on the top. The students reached in one by one and the teams were: Team A, Izuku Midoriya and Achiko Uraraka. Team B, Shoto Todoroki and Mizo Shoji. Team C, Momo Yaoyorozu and Hayato Kiryu. Team D, Tenya Ida and Katsuki Bakugo. Team E, Yuga Aoyama and Mina Ishido. Team F, Koji Koda and Hitoshi Shinso. Team G, Denki Kaminari and Kyoka Jiro. Team H, Fumikage Tokoyami and Tsuyu Azui. Team I, Masahiro Ojiro and Toru Hagakure. Team J, Eijiro Kirishima and Hantasiro. Alright then, and our first teams to battle will be these. All Might then pulled out 2 more boxes and reached in, pulling out 2 balls with a black one having the letter D and a red one having the letter A. Me versus Kaken? Izuku turned his head to see Katsuki was glaring at him, currently wearing a black leather jacket with an orange X across his chest, a belt with several grenades strapped around it, a black mask resembling an explosion, and 2 large gauntlets resembling grenades on his arms. Bring it, Deku, Katsuki said before the rest of the class left to follow All Might. Villains, you have 5 minutes to get ready. Heroes will enter when those 5 minutes are up and will have 15 minutes to deactivate the bomb. Everyone else, come with me. All Might announced as the group made their way into a nearby building. Alright, the bomb is set, Bakugo. Tenya said as he patted the side of a tall, rocket-like bomb. Papier-mâche? Hey! Tenya turned around to see Katsuki kept his attention towards the door. Deku has a quirk, right? Yes. Good. Katsuki growled as he headed for the door. I can't wait to see what that shithead can do. Wait, where are you going? Tenya was only answered by the door opening and slamming shut. Deku, are you nervous? Achiko asked as the two walked into the building. She turned to see Izuku was walking carefully with a slight tremble. Very. Why? I've never won a fight against Kaken. Izuku said as the two neared a corner. He poked his head out slightly to scope out the hall, before nodding and motioning for them to continue walking. Is he that strong? Achiko asked as they carefully opened a nearby door. Izuku poked his head in and saw that the room was empty. He looked forward towards a flight of stairs and pointed at it, making Achiko hurry to it. Kaken was always at the top. When his quirk manifested, everybody praised him for it. Izuku said, following her up the stairs. He put in the practice and I guess I was always his training dummy. Is that why he talks the way he does? Kaken's mom has an explosive temper, so I used to think he got it from her. Don't get me wrong, I have nothing against his parents. I actually miss the days when I used to see them a lot. But the older I got, I learned that he got a swelled head from everybody praising him and his quirk. It's why he acts like he's superior to everyone else. The two did the same that they did on the previous floor, with Izuku scoping out the halls and rooms while Achiko would hurry across to the next floor. And because my quirk came into my life way later than it normally should have, he just assumed what everyone else did. I was quirkless. That doesn't seem really fair. What did Hayato do about it? Hayato tried stopping Kaken almost every time when we grew up. He wound up getting blasted by him too, since he couldn't control his quirk either. Izuku explained as they reached the third floor. He pulled Achiko against the wall and lifted a finger as he heard footsteps nearby. That has to be him. I'll draw his attention while you get to Ida and the bomb. Izuku walked forward normally before ducking suddenly. He looked up to see Katsuki soaring over his head with an explosion firing from his hand, making it collide against the wall behind. Found you. You and Round Face aren't gonna pass this test. Round Face? Achiko screamed in surprise before Izuku turned to her. Go! Where the fuck do you think you're going? Katsuki extended his arm to fire at the girl, but Izuku reached for his arm and used all his normal strength to pull Katsuki over his shoulder. He yelled in pain as he managed to flip his childhood bully to the ground, but the explosion still fired and hit his leg, burning off his pant leg. Uraraka, go now. Achiko nodded and dashed past the two while Izuku took a step back to protect his leg even more. Lucky shot, prick. Katsuki stood back up and held his right arm forward and placed his left hand on a key near the end of it. Now, get ready to get blasted the fuck out of here. He began pulling the key out, revealing it to be a pin, while a hole above his hand began to glow. He finished pulling the pin out and a stream of fire burst from the hole and grazed Izuku's head and burst through the wall. Katsuki began to laugh as Izuku fell to one knee, holding the left side of his face which was now completely exposed. How do you like that? Izuku growled and pulled his mask off his face and costume, throwing it to the side. A weapon like that is too dangerous for use in a building like this. But knowing Kaken, Izuku made a break towards the boy, making him ready the gauntlet on his left side. But before he could pull its pin, Izuku delivered a hard uppercut to his chin and ripped off one of the grenades from his waist. He'll have made stun and smoke grenades. He threw the grenade at the ground and it exploded, covering every inch of the hallway in smoke, while he made his escape for the stairs. If that had even touched Midoriya, his whole head would have been blown clean off. The entire class watched in horror as they saw Izuku and Katsuki's battle from a control room. On the screen it showed the hallways in the building and the rooms, showing Achiko running and searching through every room while Tenya waited patiently by the fake bomb. Good job, young Midoriya. While you took 2 hits, you managed to use your enemy's arsenal against him to make a strategic escape. All Might said before noticing how calm Hayato was nearby. Young Kiryu, you're unusually calm while your best friend was in peril. Because Bakugo knows not to deal a fatal blow to Izuku, especially if he still wants to be a hero. And Izuku's been on the receiving end on those explosions for years. He might not be safe from them, but he knows how to avoid the worst hits. Hayato explained as they watched Izuku run up the stairs and hid in a room on the 4th floor. Especially since I can already see what he's planning. How so? All Might asked as Hayato's statement caught the attention of everyone else in the room. Izuku can't use his quirk to the fullest, otherwise he'd seriously injure Bakugo. Achiko's about to reach the room where Ida is and most likely knows that she'll be avoiding a confrontation since his quirk is more suited for combat than hers. But what if he could use Bakugo to give her the opportunity to get to the bomb? Hayato said, making All Might nod. Bakugo is an uncontrollable beast when he's angry, so why don't you rattle his cage and make him angrier? The layout of the building they chose has the rooms all located above one another and Ida is only the floor up. Bakugo has the ability to take down walls like nothing, so the same could be said for floors. Once Kaken gets close enough, I'll make him fire an explosion into the ceiling so Uraraka can use that moment to get to the bomb. Izuku said to himself as he looked up, knowing that in the one of the floors above them, Tenya was waiting for them. I have the chance to prove myself to Kaken that I'm not as useless as he thinks. Du. The door to the room blew open and in walked Katsuki, fuming from what Izuku had done to him before. I'm gonna kill you. And you suddenly have a quirk now. Defenseless Izuku all of a sudden has what he needed to be a hero. What kind of fucking joke is that? The only joke here is you. Izuku grit his teeth and explosions fired off Katsuki's hands, signaling he was getting angrier. My name Deku, it's not an insult to me anymore. You isn't a loser anymore. You is the name of a hero. A loser will always be a loser. When will you learn? Katsuki yelled as he fired a powerful explosion towards him. Izuku dodged by sliding to the side and grabbed an empty crate, throwing it at him. Katsuki destroyed the crate instantly only to be met with a powerful kick to the face from his enemy. He grit his teeth and grabbed Izuku's leg, heating it up to burn it before throwing him into a pillar. You think you can stand on the same stage as me? Use your quirk already, come on. I don't need to think, I know I can. Izuku stood back up and felt the power of one for all surge into his body. He let out a deep breath and felt the energy diminish greatly. I should push it down to 5% at the very least and transfer the power to my arms and legs. If I don't keep my focus, I could put too much and break them. You're a real comedian today. Katsuki fired another explosion but was shocked to see that the boy he once used to use like a moving target just jumped over him with ease, and the blast instead destroyed the pillar he threw him into. Izuku landed behind him and delivered a punch to his back, knocking the air out of Katsuki's body. What was that? Achiko asked as she felt the building shake from Katsuki's explosions. She opened the door slowly and saw Tenya and the bomb near the end of the room. Well, hero, you finally made it. I will capture you and use this bomb to level this entire city. Tenya yelled before the explosion that hit the pillar made him fall to his feet. What's going on? Please be safe. Fuck you. That shot was nothing but cheap, Katsuki said, standing back up from the hit. Izuku chuckled and took a step back, feeling a slight pain in his arms and legs. I'm gonna kill you. You've done nothing but say that, but you know what? You should just shut up. This was the final straw. Katsuki began firing explosion after explosion and used it to propel himself towards Izuku. The boy smiled and jumped forward, grabbing Katsuki's arms in midair and pointing them towards the ceiling. The explosions Katsuki was about to hit him with fired up and into the ceiling, unknowingly knocking Tenya away and making the ground under the bomb begin to crumble. Izuku slammed his feet into Bakugo's chest and used him to jump through the hole he had made, while pushing Katsuki hard into the ground. He turned around to see Achiko standing near the doorway, looking at him in shock. Deku! Uraraka, you're up. Achiko nodded and ran towards Izuku. He grabbed her arms and spun her around, throwing her towards the bomb that now began to fall into the floor below. She grabbed hold of it just before the bomb could touch the ground behind Katsuki and made it float in midair. The entire class watched what Izuku had just done and stood speechless, especially All Might. He reached down and picked up a microphone, turning it on. Heroes. Win. All Might's voice played through the entire building while Tenya screamed from shock and Katsuki began to scream from frustration. Achiko fixed the position of the bomb and put it so it would land straight up while Izuku walked over to help Tenya up. All of you make your way to the control room so the next team can go. Need some help? Izuku asked as he extended his arm to his friend. Tenya nodded and grabbed it, while the boy helped him stand up. That was amazing, Midoriya. You somehow got control of that quirk of yours. Tenya said, making Izuku shake his head. I didn't control it, I was just keeping it from putting too much force. Izuku said, making Tenya laugh. What? You managed to control it, even if it was just for a minute. But what about Bakugo? Tenya said as the two looked into the floor beneath team, seeing only Achiko was in the room. I think I finally got to him. Izuku said before the two began to walk out. Young Kiryu and Yaoyorozu, you two are up next as villains. Young Kaminari and Jiro, you both will be the heroes. All Might said, earning a nod from the four students, but then the door opened and in walked Katsuki, still fuming. Following him was Tenya, Izuku, and Achiko, all three with a smile on their faces. Young Bakugo, I wish to have a word with you before the next trial. The rest of you, good job. Especially you, young Midoriya. Thank you. Izuku yelled, bowing to his mentor. He felt a hand on his shoulder and turned to see Hayato giving him a thumbs up. Hayato, you and I have some work to do after school. See you after we ace this. Hayato yelled as he and Momo both walked away, followed by a purple-haired girl and the orange-blonde-haired boy. Young Midoriya, if I may have a minute with you. Izuku turned around again to see his predecessor motioning him over. He walked over to the older man who bent down to whisper in his ear. How did you control one for all so easily? It wasn't easy. Izuku said, grabbing his right arm. My bones felt like they were going to snap if I continued at even 5%. If anything, I might have a small fracture. I see. Go see recovery girl so she could also tend to those burns. All Might said, making Izuku nod. He quickly wrote him a note and Izuku left, feeling Katsuki glaring at him. Young Bakugo, that was extremely careless and dangerous. Katsuki turned to see the towering figure of All Might standing over him. Teeth, whatever. It's not whatever, I see real promise in you to be a hero. Katsuki hid his eyes as he began to tremble. I understand how it must feel. Always known as the winner, that feeling that you will never lose, it's all something I've experienced firsthand. And I know how it feels to lose. All Might said as he remembered his youth, and the day he lost his predecessor to the most dangerous villain to ever exist. I didn't lose, that nerd got lucky. It's a big world out there, you're not always going to be the best. It's why we have to work harder and learn from our experiences so that we can grow and continue to climb until we reach our destination. All Might placed his hand on the top of Katsuki's head. Young Midoriya learned that lesson from growing up with you, now it's time you learn as well. So, what do you think we should do? Momo asked as she and Hayato stood in the room where they decided to hide their bomb. Depends, we have 3 options considering our situation. Hayato responded as he looked at the door. 1. We split up to cover more ground. I'll leave the room and try to stop Kaminari and Jiro before they can get to the room while you stay here to watch the bomb. 2. We both stay here to cover the bomb. We leave the door with a trap and we both handle them head-on to watch the bomb if they get through it. 3. We trap them like prey. We either leave something in another room or we bait them to come here, and once they fall for it, we capture them and pass the test. We need to play it safely. As I recall, Kaminari's quirk allows him to emit and surround himself with electricity. And Jiro's jacks amplify her hearing, so for all we know she could be listening to us at this very moment. Momo said, making Hayato chuckle. I think I know. It's not very hero-like, but we're playing villains at the moment. Hayato bent down and picked up a rock that was laying in the middle of the room. He looked at the door and threw it as hard and as fast as possible. Momo covered her ears as the impact made a loud clanging sound. What are you doing? You said Jiro's quirk amplifies sound for her, right? Momo nodded. When anything relies heavily on sound, like sonar, a loud sound will always disrupt it. If she was listening, then that must have gotten to her. So then what tactic are we using? We've cut Jiro off from listening to us while also giving away our position. It's better if I cut them off before they reach us. Hayato opened the door and began to leave. I know you can create things from your body, so I might need something so I can take out Kaminari quicker. You're pretty confident. My best friend decided to be a show-off, I can't fall behind him. Damn that Hayato, he and Midoriya are fast thinkers. Kyoka said as she held her right ear in pain. She and Denki made their way upstairs to where she had heard Momo and Hayato's voices come from. They were on the 3rd floor, I just wish I could have heard what they were planning. You did a great job by just locating them. Denki said as he placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. He lifted up his other hand as yellow electricity sparked from it. Now it's my turn. Good luck with that, heroes. The two turned around as something zoomed past them. Hayato came to stop us. Kyoka yelled as a shadow began to head towards them. Take this, 50,000 volts. Denki pushed Kyoka away as electricity began sparking off of him. But he fell backwards as a black cloth surrounded him. Kyoka looked in surprise as Hayato quickly tied the blanket around with tape. What is this, bro? Denki asked as Hayato laid him down on the ground. Oh, this? I had Momo make me a rubber blanket. Hayato said before suddenly his ears began ringing. He turned around to see Jiro pointing her boot at him while one of her earphone jacks were plugged into an attachment on the side, firing powerful sound waves at him. Stay where you are, villain. Kyoka said as she grabbed a roll of tape from her pocket and started walking towards him. He pressed his earpiece and covered both of his ears while the girl neared him. Why, you were right, she's blasting me with sound from her speakers. And she has you immobilized? Momo asked through the earpiece. I can't stand. Then attack her from below. Hayato turned around and kicked Kyoka's speaker, disconnecting her jack from them while tripping her. Before she could land on the ground, Hayato activated his quirk and caught her, placing a strip of his tape to stick her jacks to her arms. Caught you. Kyoka blushed slightly as she noticed how Hayato was holding and smiling at her. Villains win. They heard All Might's voice ring throughout the building as Hayato placed Kyoka down and untied Denki. Man, That was quicker than Midoriya and Bakugo's. Denki said while Momo made her way to them. You know, that wasn't cool what you did before. Kyoka said as she rubbed her ear. Hayato laughed sheepishly while rubbing the back of his head. I know, I'm sorry. Gotta be a bit of a jerk if you're playing the bad guy. I'm sorry I wasn't useful to you, Kiryu. I should have been more attentive and aided you in taking them down. Momo said, placing a hand on her chest. Hayato shook his head and removed his cowl. All I did was run, literally. You made the blanket to wrap him like sushi and you told me how to stop her. You were the most important part of the plan. Hayato said as they began to leave the building. I went ahead because if they caught me, I knew you could protect the bomb and handle at least one of them. I needed the blanket to protect myself from static over here. I just wish I knew about that sound wave thing ahead of time too. Where'd you learn to be so attentive? Denki asked, making Hayato laugh. Izuku. He's the brains and the brawn between the two of us. Man, today was so awesome. Hayato yelled happily as he and Izuku left school grounds, hours after the school day had finished. Yeah. But what did you want to talk about? Izuku asked before Hayato pulled him close. Two things, one for all and girls. Girls? Izuku jumped back as he began blushing heavily. What do girls have to do with anything? Izuku, I saw how you were checking out Achiko today. Hayato said as he made an hourglass motion with his hands. I saw your eyes, you were checking her out in that outfit. That's not true. I bet little Izuku got excited when he found out he got to stay close to that cutie for the exam. Stop it. Or should I ask you about Yayorozu? And say what? SG has such a revealing outfit. Oh yeah, that's true. Hayato said nonchalantly. I didn't even pay attention. Don't tell me you like Uraraka. Achiko? Nah man, she's yours. Hayato smiled as he imagined the two together. From what I saw, you two have the hots for each other. Stop lying. Achiko Midoriya? Nice ring to it. Izuku's face was completely red by this point. But, if I'm being completely honest, Momo is pretty nice. You do like Yayorozu. Dude, it's only our second day, relax. Besides, what you did with One for All today was more important. Hayato said with his happy and nonchalant demeanor suddenly changed to a more serious one. You did what we've been trying to get you to do. What did you even do? I kept the energy of One for All at a bare minimum and distributed it in more than one place. Izuku explained, making Hayato smile. But I still wound up hurting myself. Izuku, that image with the egg doesn't work for you. You and I are two different people. I can't tell you what to imagine to understand it. But, you and I are going to be partners when we're heroes. If I need to be the one to push you to understand how your powers work, I'll do it. Hayato said before activating his quirk. You see what I'm doing? I'm distributing my quirk throughout my entire body. Not just one leg or the other. The way my grandpa taught me was that if you plug too many things into one outlet, you're gonna short-circuit the outlet. So, what are you saying? You're the smart one. You didn't hurt yourself a lot today by keeping it in both your arms and legs at once, but you still fractured the arm you hit Bakugo with. Think for a moment. Izuku's eyes widened as he realized what Hayato was getting to. If I distribute it across my entire body, I can have my body get used to the feeling of One for All. You're getting it. Hayato deactivated his quirk and fell to one knee, feeling weaker. One burst at a time isn't enough. I need to keep it in a constant and steady stream, increasing it in force as time goes on. Izuku said as he looked at his hands happily. I understand now. You what? I said I understand now. Izuku yelled before helping his best friend stand up. I hope he won't be too shocked by this sudden visit. All Might said in his true form as he knocked on the door of a rundown apartment building. He was shocked to see the door was opened by a tall, gray-haired man. Oh sorry, I thought this was Sorahiko Torino's home. Tashinori? Is that you? He looked down to see a small, white-haired old man walking with a cane behind the taller man. I'm sorry, I've been busy now with life as a teacher. But I wish to talk to you about something. All Might said before turning his attention to the taller man. Oh forgive me, I'm Tashinori Yagi. Kazuma Kiryu. The older man said, surprising All Might. I know who you are, All Might. I'm Hayato's grandfather. Come in, we have some taiyaki. Sorahiko said, guiding the number one hero in. All three sat at the nearby table, with a plate of fish-shaped pastries in front of them. So, what have you come here to say after all this time? Today, Kazuma's grandson was in my heroics class. I wanted to see if you would one day mentor him, as I'm far too inexperienced with a quirk like his. That's actually what I'm here about, Kazuma said, catching his attention. Sorahiko is to take guardianship of Hayato soon. I'm far too sick now to make it to the end of the month, Kazuma said to All Might, shocking him. I'm sure you knew that his grandfather is his guardian, but I was diagnosed with end-stage terminal cancer months ago. Does young Kiryu know about this? I haven't told him. Frankly, I barely had the strength to come all the way here. But he's just starting out his journey to be a hero. I don't want to ruin that for him by distracting him from his studies, Kazuma said while Sorahiko sighed. Sorahiko was the only person I could count on to take care of him when I'm gone. I see. And how do you know each other? Bah. That boy was in your class and you didn't see the resemblance. Some apprentice you are, Sorahiko said, hitting All Might's hand with his stick. He remembered Hayato's hero costume and looked at a nearby photo of Sorahiko in his younger days, dressed as the way he envisioned Hayato before. I didn't know you had a child. My Tawa removed me from her life decades ago, but to know a daughter of mine would leave her own child behind? I can't help but feel like a failure as a father. Sorahiko sighed before looking at the two. I'm too old to take care of a child now, but I know I can try to make up for the mistakes I made with my own daughter if I can finish seeing my grandson grow, especially with what you had told me in that letter months ago, Toshinori. But I need the time to ready myself to be a caretaker again. Caring for my daughter after her mother's death took quite a toll on me. Well, the UA Sports Festival is next month. He'll be participating with his class. You can see what he's like when it takes place. I'll leave you two to finish your conversation, All Might said before heading towards the door. It'll look like a blast from the past, I can promise you that. It was a normal day like any other. And right now, Hayato was doing his early morning jog. It was something that became more of a habit when he and Izuku were training leading up to their entrance exam. Before, it was just to give their bodies a warm-up for their long days of exercising. Now, it's just how he finishes waking up for school. As he jogged through the streets, the events of the past few days had been stuck on repeat in his head. First, the class had elected their representative. At first it was Izuku, then after an alarm scare where the entire student body went into panic, they voted to make it Tenya, who had single-handedly calmed everyone down when he realized it was the press who had gotten onto school grounds. But what kept his attention the most was how they had even got in. UA has top-of-the-line security, so only students and faculty can enter when they have their special badges on them. But someone had completely destroyed the security they had and allowed the press to invade school grounds to get an interview about All Might being their newest teacher. But who was he to worry about that? He's in the top school in the country where the best heroes to ever exist in Japan are alumni. If anyone wanted to declare war on them, then it'd be the same as an injured gazelle against a pride of lions. He's just 15 years old, he has other things to worry about. Like teasing Momo about how she'd only got second place as their vice representative. But the more important matter, he'd spent every moment he could with Izuku to help him spread one for all across his entire body, but it was a task proving to be just impossible at the moment. When he would be close to nearing their goal, the power would just leave his body due to him not being used to it. But they both knew that with time and patience, he would control one for all and continue walking the path to becoming a hero. And now he has a new favorite hobby, teasing Izuku about Achiko. It was more than clear that Izuku had feelings for her, even if he was too stubborn to admit it. He's been scolded by Momo and approached by every other girl in their class, and of course due to his timid nature, he would stutter and act weird around them. But with Achiko, it's a different story entirely. His face always turns red, he's always blushing, and when that leaves, he talks to her with a confidence neither of them have ever had, even after 10 years of friendship. "Grandpa, I'm back!" Hayato yelled as he opened the door to his home of over 10 years. He looked around, seeing the lights were still off and the curtains were still closed. Grandpa. He looked around and went to the hallway to see the light to the bathroom on and the door closed. He heard what sounded like someone retching and rushed over to the door, knocking on it. Are you okay? Why, I'm fine. Kazuma yelled on the other side of the door. Hayato took a step back as the door opened, revealing his grandfather wiping his mouth with a red towel. Sorry to worry you, I had a stomach bug when I woke up. If you're feeling sick, I'll stay home from class today to take care of you. Hayato said, making Kazuma shake his head. No, son, I'll clean up in there and you just worry about getting ready to go to you, Kazuma said as he weakly walked over to a nearby closet. Hayato sighed and walked over to his guardian, turning him to his bedroom. Get into bed, old man. I'm taking care of you today, Hayato said as he walked his grandfather to his room and put him in his bed. He sighed and left the room, walking to the phone that they had on the wall nearby. He quickly dialed a number and waited for the other line to pick up. Hello, All Might said as he picked up the other line. All Might, it's Hayato. Oh, young Kiryu, what can I do for you this morning? Well, I wanted to ask you for a favor. My grandpa woke up insanely sick this morning, and given his age, I'm gonna stay home today to take care of him. All Might went silent on the other line. So I wanted you to let Mr. Aizawa know I won't be in today. I see. Is something wrong? Hayato asked as there was an odd hesitation in his mentor's voice. Nothing, just a crime going on nearby. I'll let them know at UA. Take care and I'll see you later, All Might said as he hung up the call. Hayato chuckled before dialing another number, waiting for them to pick up as well. Kazuma, Dr. Ishida, it's Hayato, Hayato said as his grandfather's friend picked up the phone. Oh, Ayato. How are you? I'm doing good. How are your hero studies at UA? They're going fine, but Doc, I called you because my grandpa isn't feeling that well this morning. Now it was Dr. Ishida's turn to go silent on the other line. I wanted to know if you could maybe come and check him out? He says it's just a stomach bug, but I'm not so sure. Hayato, he never told you? Told me what? Hayato asked as he took the phone to the balcony. Son, your grandfather has stage 4 lung cancer. Hayato nearly dropped the phone hearing this. It was at its end stages when they found it, so now it's terminal. I'm sorry to say this to you, but if your grandfather is in horrible condition, then I'm afraid he won't live to see the end of this week. Thank you, Doc. I'll update you if anything else happens. Hayato hung up the call and looked at his hands, feeling them trembling. He quietly walked back into the apartment and walked over to the bathroom. He opened it and saw the floor and sink covered in blood splatters. Even the mirror had splatters on it. He picked up the towel and looked at the dark red splatters all over it, recognizing them as blood stains as well. He walked over to his grandfather's room to see him watching TV calmly. Oh, you're not going to get ready? Kazuma asked as Hayato sat down next to him. Nah, I called out. If my old man is sick, then why would I leave him alone? Hayato asked, trying to control his trembling. Especially when he might need me the most. Oh, you're shivering. Here, don't get cold, Kazuma said as he pulled his blanket over his grandson, smiling while Hayato tried hiding the tears welling in his eyes. Grandpa, what do you want for lunch? Hayato asked hours later as he entered Kazuma's room. I think I'll just have some soup, don't worry, Kazuma said, making Hayato nod. Okay, I'll order some right now. No, it's fine, I'm good enough to go out and get some fresh air, Kazuma said as he struggled to get out of bed. Hayato rushed over and helped him up, walking him over to his closet. Hayato, I'm good. I'm not gonna help you get dressed, but I'll at least help you get some clothes, Hayato said as he grabbed a black shirt and sweatpants, handing them to his grandfather. I'll get ready to go with you, Hayato said as he left the room to change his clothes as well. After 10 minutes, the two made their way out of their apartment and downstairs, greeting their other neighbors that they passed on the way down. So where are we going? Well, the soup at that restaurant at the downtown station is really good. All right then, let's go to the station, Hayato said as the two made their way down the sidewalk and continued for about 15 minutes until they reached the monorail station. The two got their tickets and made their way onto their train, with Hayato standing up while his grandfather got the last available seat. Hayato, have a seat and I'll stand, Kazuma said as he struggled to stand up. Age before beauty, come on, just sit down and relax. Hayato said, placing a hand on Kazuma's shoulder. The rest of the train ride was met with silence before they reached their stop, with Hayato helping Kazuma out of his seat and off the train. The two left the boarding area and made their way to a nearby restaurant. They sat down and a waitress immediately came over to them. Good afternoon, how can I help you both today? Well, I'll have a pork cutlet bowl and my grandpa will have your soup of the day. Hayato said, speaking quickly before Kazuma could answer her. And to drink? Water for him and a cola for me. The waitress nodded and walked away with their order written down. Kazuma looked at his grandson confused while he paid attention to the people walking past them. Hayato? Yeah. Is something wrong? Hayato simply responded by shaking his head. You've never missed class for me before, what's the matter? It's just. Hayato let out a trembling breath as he tried to find a way avoiding of what he was told before. Being at UA reminded me of how precious time can be. How one mistake can cost you everything. If I left you behind today to go to school, I could have come home to find you unable to move on the floor. Hayato, please, it's just a stomach bug. You missed out on work a lot when I was a kid, I need to make that up to you in some way. Hayato said as the waitress returned and placed their drinks in front of them. Son, you never need to worry about getting even with me. I raised you since you were barely a toddler, you paid me back by getting better and never giving me a reason to worry about you. Kazuma said as he struggled to drink his water. What more could I ever ask from you? You never told me why my parents left me. Can you explain that to me now? I'm old enough now to understand. Hayato pleaded, making Kazuma sigh. He cleared his throat and sat back in his chair. Your mother had a rocky relationship with her father. Her mother died after giving birth to her and your grandfather took her death hard, leading her to always believe he resented her. But he never once blamed her for the loss of his wife. But when she reached your age, she met your father. She fell madly in love and after 3 years, she got pregnant with you. Kazuma began as he felt the taste of blood in his mouth. He drank it down with water and looked at his grandson who began hiding his eyes from him. She ran away from home and I allowed them to live with me since your grandmother divorced me years before this. She gave birth to you and I began to take care of you so they could work to earn money. Your father began to rise up in his job and got your mother to work with him when he became supervisor at this accounting firm he worked at. By that point, you had already begun to walk and you were nearing the point where you would begin to talk. Then when you were about to turn 3, they offered your parents positions at a branch they were opening in America and they immediately jumped to it. I supported them accepting such well-paying jobs, but they had no intentions of taking you. I had been taking care of you daily and when they were home, they would find reasons to leave and come back late at night to leave me in charge of you. So when they were preparing to leave, I gave them an ultimatum. They would take their jobs but find time to take care of you, or they could leave you with me under the condition they were to never ask me for any help or involve themselves in your life once they did. And they cared more about the money than their mistake of a son. Hayato said under his breath. Don't you dare start talking like that. They were children who made a mistake and didn't see the miracle they had created. Without you, I would have given up on life a long time ago. Hayato looked at his grandfather who kept a serious demeanor. How is that right? I retired early so that every day I woke up, I could proudly see my grandson grow into the man he is today. And your parents couldn't even put 5 minutes aside for you. How is that right? You deserved better, especially from me. No, I didn't. I'm grateful for everything that I have. All the blessings I have in my life, being enrolled into UTA, my friends, I'm grateful for all of that. But you're what I'm most grateful for. Hayato said as he felt his tears begin to stream down his face. If it weren't for you, your patience, your courage, the will to keep going and be better, I learned all of that from you. More than anyone else, you're the one who showed me what it takes to be a good person. This time it was Kazuma's turn to begin to hold back his tears. For that I will always be grateful. Hayato stood up and walked over to his grandfather, giving him a tight hug. I just wish I had more time with you, so you could see me become a hero. It's alright, it's okay. I'm never gonna leave you, even when I'm gone. Kazuma said, kissing his grandson's head. Following their emotional lunch, the two walked through downtown Muzutafu before suddenly on a TV screen above them, the news started playing. I'm here reporting from UA High School that has just been attacked by villains. A female reporter said on screen, making Hayato look up and his eyes widened. Apparently, the villains snuck in during what was supposed to be a rescue training mission and cornered the first-year class, Class 1A. Hayato and Kazuma looked in shock as they played a video of all of the Class 1A students leaving a domed building while dozens of villains were being arrested by police. The perpetrators are believed to call themselves the League of Villains and even managed to injure the heroes Eraserhead and 13 in the process. Luckily for the students, All Might arrived and defeated their heaviest hitter and bought time for the other faculty, all known pro-heroes, to arrive and make the arrests on all but 2 villains. We'll bring you more updates as we get them. The news report stopped as the crowd that was currently watching all began to talk among themselves. Hayato turned to his grandfather, who nodded at him. Go. But you need to get home first. Hate, ga. Your friends need you. Hayato hesitantly began to walk away before running away towards the direction of UA High. Kazuma sighed before feeling faint, beginning to fall to his knees. They'll always need you. Kazuma collapsed on the ground, making onlookers scream in horror while others began to dial for an ambulance. Damn it. Damn it. I left them all behind. I could have helped them. Hayato thought to himself as after 20 minutes of running, he reached the gates of his high school, which was now being surrounded by the media. He gulped and ran into the crowd, reaching the entrance only to be stopped by a police officer. Stop. What is your business here? I go here. Hayato yelled as he dug into his pocket and pulled out his badge. My class was the one who was attacked. Please, I need to see my friends. The officer looked at his superior, who was standing nearby wearing a trench coat, who walked over to him. I'm Detective Tsukachi. I'm a friend of All Might's. You're the missing student, right? Yes, sir. We've been waiting for you. Come this way. Tsukachi said as he led Hayato onto school grounds while a bus finished making its way to the parking lot. He turned to see Tenya, Achiko, and the others coming off, the majority of them looking frazzled. Go see them and then meet me in the infirmary. Guys. The class turned to see Hayato running at them, making the majority of them smile. Hayato Kiryu. Hayato ran up to them and looked at them worriedly. I'm so sorry I wasn't here, but my grandpa, he's. Hayato said, visibly shaking. Kiryu, we understand. We all felt happier that at least one of us was safe from harm. Momo said as she walked forward to him. This was all too dangerous a situation for you to wish to have been there. But Hayato, what's wrong with your grandpa? Achiko as she realized what Hayato was saying before. He's dying. Hayato said, clenching his fists. I wanted to spend today with him because I thought he was just sick normally, but now that I know that he could die any day now, and now that you guys could have been too, I just can't. Hayato struggled to keep his composure before Momo pulled him in for a hug. It's okay, but Midoriya broke his legs using his quirk. Momo said, making Hayato's eyes widen. Go to him. A boy with half-white half-red hair said, walking forward. Momo let go of Hayato while he took a step back. Todoroki, everyone. He activated his quirk and took off, heading into the building, and as fast as he could, ran to the infirmary. He slammed the door open to see Tsukachi, All Might, and Izuku all there waiting for him. Young Kiryu. Hayato. You did it again. I thought you had control over it. Hayato closed the door and walked over to Izuku's bedside, hiding his eyes from his best friend. It was a spur of the moment to save All Might. Young Kiryu, you look tired. All Might said, making Hayato punch the window behind him. My best friend got hurt, my class got attacked by villains, my teacher's in the hospital, death is knocking on my grandpa's fucking door, how am I supposed to be? Hayato yelled as tears continued streaming down his face. What the fuck even happened? There's a group of villains known as the League of Villains. I've been investigating them for a long time. And as it looks, the leader of today's attack was responsible for the UA security door being destroyed the other day. He has the ability to disintegrate anything he touches. We also have a villain that can warp, so that's new information as well. But for now all we know is All Might was their target. Tsukachi was interrupted by Hayato's phone ringing. He didn't recognize the number and cleared his throat, answering the call. Hello. Almost immediately, Hayato dropped his phone when he heard what they were calling him for. Hayato. My grandpa, he's in the hospital? Hayato said, making Izuku and All Might's eyes widen. I have to go. Wait. All Might said as Izuku limped out of bed and Tsukachi stood up. Tsukachi, can you take him? Of course. I'm coming too. Izuku said as the three of them rushed out of the room and out of the school. Grandpa! Hayato yelled as he and Izuku ran down the halls of Mustafu General to the room they had said Kazuma was in. They reached the room and ran inside to see Kazuma laying down on a bed, strapped to a heart monitor with a doctor standing next to him. Hayato! Kazuma said weakly as his grandson ran over to his side. I'm sorry I didn't tell you. Forget that. Grandpa, please hold on. I'm sorry, son. You should tell him your goodbyes now. The doctor said as he left the room, leaving the three alone in the room. Izuku, will you promise me something? Kazuma asked as Izuku walked over to his side. He nodded as he held back his tears while Hayato's were falling all over his grandfather's bed sheets. Take care of him, keep him out of trouble. Make sure he marries someone worth marrying, and make sure that I don't see him on the other side until he's as old as me. I promise. You can't leave me. You need to see me become a hero you'd be proud of. Hayato yelled, grabbing his grandfather's hand. What? Hayato, from the moment you were born, you were my hero. You saved me more than you think. I'll always be proud of you. Kazuma said as he placed his left hand on his grandson's cheek. I love you so much. He gave him one last smile before closing his eyes, letting his hand drop as the last ounce of life that was in his body passed on. Izuku began to cry and Hayato began to scream while all they heard was the flat line coming from the heart monitor. If you want, you can leave your bags in Izuku's room while I set up an air mattress for you. Inko said as she led the two boys into the Midoriya home. Following Kazuma's death, she was called by the doctors to come pick them up under orders from the now deceased Kiryu. She took them to his apartment to get clothes for Hayato as she would be taking care of him until his new guardian was ready to take him in. Hayato nodded and walked to the living room and sat down on the sofa, hiding his now red eyes from the older Midoriya. Would you like anything? Water? Milk? She was met with him slowly shaking his head. Whatever you need, I'm here for you. Hayato? Izuku asked as he sat next to him. You know, Yaoyorozu was really worried about you today. Hayato slowly moved his head to look at him. When she saw that you weren't there, she immediately asked me where you were. I told her you were at home and she accepted that it was probably an emergency. But you know, the scariest part of today wasn't the villains that attacked us. It was how the idea that you let them know where we would be somehow went around for a minute. Hayato turned his head to keep looking down. It was an idea that a teacher had thought of, but Principal Nizu quickly shut it down, as did we. Yaoyorozu vouched for you as much as I did, saying how you were nothing like that and that you had no clue about our training today to begin with. Then the whole class rallied together to cover for you while you were dealing with your grandpa. Hayato began trembling. I made the mistake of pushing myself to 100% today, but I knew that if you were there, you would have done the same thing I did if it was to protect me, All Might, or anyone else. Mr. Aizawa wasn't the most thrilled about you not being there today, but he understood why, so I'm guessing he found out in his own way. I know you don't want to talk or anything while you're mourning, but we need to make him proud. Together. We have the whole weekend to spend together and help me control one for all, and if you ever need anything, you can always come to me too. Izuku said before the two heard a knock at the door. Inko walked over to the door and opened it, being met with Achiko and Tenya standing in front of it. Oh, hello. Are Kiryu and Midoriya here? Tenya asked, earning a nod from Inko. I'm Inko, Izuku's mother, and both of them are in the living room. She guided them inside and both walked into the living room to see Hayato and Izuku on the sofa. Izuku looked at them and shook his head, making the two look at the floor. Hayato, are you okay? Achiko asked, only to be met with silence. We came to see you. Everyone in the class, when you said why you were absent, all came together to make this for you. Tenya said as he reached into his pocket and pulled out his phone. He sat it on the coffee table and pressed play while a video started. "Hey Hayato! It's Mina!" A completely pink girl yelled as she appeared on the screen as the camera went around to the whole class. "And Tsu," a green-haired girl with her tongue sticking out. "And Kirishima," a spiky red-haired boy said as his arms suddenly hardened like rock. "And Kaminari." Denki gave a thumbs up. "Jiro too." Kyoka shyly waved. "Shoji," a white-haired boy with 6 arms, all webbed together, waved. "Toru." Nothing was on the screen but a pair of gloves that was waving. "Siro," a black-haired boy with what looked like rolls on his elbows giving a peace sign. "Ojiro," a blonde-haired boy with a muscular tail said, nodding. "Tokoyami," a boy with what looked like a bird's head said, nodding as well. "Koda," a boy with what looked like a rock-shaped head quietly said as he waved. "Shinso," a purple-haired boy plainly said before looking away. "Aoyama," a blonde-haired boy that somehow looked as if he was sparkling said, making a pose. "And Yayarozu." Now the camera focused on Momo. "We know that you must feel so guilty about what happened along with your emotions about your grandfather. But all of us here, Class 1, we're sending you this message because we care about you. You're as important here as any one of us. You were safe from physical danger while you were hurting emotionally at home. We all hope you come to class on Monday. This class just isn't the same when you're not here." Momo said with a slight blush before the video ended. "We were all worried," Tenya said, placing a hand on Hayato's shoulder. "And we understand that you must feel alone without him. But you're not alone. No one from Class 1A will ever be alone because we all have each other's backs," Achiko said as she stood next to Izuku. "Especially you two, both of you combined are like All Might. Deku has his strength and you have his speed, and together you give us hope and inspire us to make us want to be better. Now come on, are you going to continue this journey to become a hero with us?" Tenya was met with Hayato standing up with more tears falling down his cheeks. But when they all saw, he had a big smile on his face, making them smile as well. "You guys are the best, just please let me stop crying. I'm gonna be dehydrated as shit if you guys keep this up," Hayato said, wiping the tears from his eyes. "Good morning," Izuku yelled as he slid open the door to Class 1A. The class greeted him happily before the majority looked behind him. "Sorry guys. Hayato isn't with me." The class all groaned sadly before he waved his hands up. "No, he's here. He just went to see Principal Nizu before coming here." "So, did his grandpa actually pass away, Midoriya, Ribbit?" Tsuyu asked, making Izuku nod. "Right after he arrived here, his grandpa had collapsed and sent to the hospital. He passed away right after he told him goodbye," Izuku said as he placed his book bag on his desk. "Poor guy, is he all right?" Ijiro asked, earning a sigh from Izuku. "He looked better on Friday, but this weekend he spent it working out." "Poor guy," Denki said, sitting back in his chair. "I'm not surprised," Tenya said, speaking up. "Death affects everyone differently. Friday may as well have been the worst day in Kiryu's life," Tenya said as he cleaned his glasses. "But let's try to cheer him up. Come on everyone, let's give him a big welcome when he walks in," Mina said before they heard the door open. They all turned to see Hayato walking in with an exhausted look on his face. "Good morning everyone," Hayato said, raising a hand to greet his class. He trudged over to his seat and sat down, looking at the board. You okay, bud?" Denki asked, earning a nod from the boy. "What did Principal Nizu want to talk to you about?" Kyoka asked, making Hayato sigh. "I understand this is a difficult time for you. If you need anyone to help you or even just talk to you, all of the faculty are willing to assist you." Hayato sat across from a humanoid mouse with 2 cups of tea between them. "I'm fine. I appreciate the offer. You know, Hayato, a lot of times our emotions, even the strongest ones, can begin to waver when we hit our lowest points," Nizu said, taking a sip from his tea. "Anger is a gateway to revenge. Loss can fog our judgment and make us do things we normally wouldn't. What we do when it happens can define who we are for the rest of our lives." He watched as Hayato reached for his backpack. "You're an amazing student and a promising hero. I just hope you understand what I'm trying to warn you about. Those villains made their way here to try to harm us in an attempt to declare war, and chances are a lot of them are fueled by emotions such as that. He told me that the faculty will be there to support me if I needed anything, and that was it. Hayato said before the door opened. The class looked in a mix of shock and horror as Aizawa walked in, bandaged from head to toe with his arms in slings. "Mr. Aizawa, aren't you supposed to be in the hospital?" Momo asked as he took his place in front of the class. "Time is limited, I can't waste it in bed. Besides, I'm just here to let you all know that coming up we have an important event, the UA Sports Festival." The class lit up hearing this announcement. "It's in 2 weeks. From now on you can use your time in the afternoon and on campus to train. That's all, plus ultra and all that crap. Homeroom is dismissed." As quickly as he came in, Aizawa quickly made his way out. The entire class, minus the typical quiet ones, all erupted into different conversations. "This is so exciting!" Achiko yelled as she happily jumped out of her seat. "And so many pros are gonna be watching," Ijiro said, running hands through his red spiky hair. "Yes, this is an important occasion for all of us," Momo said before noticing how Hayato stayed quiet in his seat, the complete opposite of how he normally would be. Kairi dash. Speed freak. Hayato looked up to see Katsuki standing over him, with a somewhat more muscular appearance to him. "What are you so damn quiet for?" "Just thinking, Bakugo. I'm gonna crush you at the festival, but you better make it worth my time." "Kaken, I don't think dash," Izuku responded by Hayato standing up to look at Katsuki dead in the eyes. "I'm gonna leave you in the dust, I can promise you that," Hayato said, making Katsuki chuckle. "That's the spirit, don't you dare go easy on me." "The same goes for you, Deku," Katsuki said, turning his attention to Izuku, who jumped slightly at this. "If you hold back for even a moment, I'll fucking kill you. You got that?" "Maybe working on sprints would help," Hayato said, cracking his neck after school. He was currently on the field dressed in his PED uniform while his other classmates were in the nearby training facilities. "Or maybe you should just train like any other person." He turned around to see Hitoshi Shinso walking over to him with his hand on the back of his neck. "Shinso, what do you want?" "So damn cold, I just wanted to talk." "About?" "Well, for starters, I just want to say I had no part in that sappy-ass video they made for you. I was forced to be in it by that psycho. Second of all, I just wanted to talk." "Well, you talked. So bye," Hayato said as he prepared to run. Before he could, he sighed and turned to face Hitoshi. "I'm curious, how did you even pass anyway?" "Well, my quirk is brainwashing. I thought it would hold me back from passing the practical part of the entrance exams." "But you can't brainwash robots, so what the hell did you do?" "I brainwashed people to get out of the way if they were in trouble. Apparently that adds up rescue points. I wouldn't have passed, but apparently some twerp with some glue ball quirk had ripped off a girl's shirt and bra with his balls by accident and then proudly groped her, so they disqualified him, and that made me the 36th place person for the exam," Hitoshi explained, rubbing the back of his neck. "Damn, but you know, I think it's cool you joined the hero course," Hayato said, crossing his arms. Hitoshi looked at him in surprise while he sighed. "A quirk that can brainwash people would be used for evil, that's no question. I'm sure people would have thought that about you, but look at Mr. Aizawa. You could say his quirk can be an evil quirk, but at the same time so could anyone else's. It's not the tool, it's the person using the tool that matters," Hayato said before nodding at him. "You know, I'm gonna crush you at the festival," Hitoshi said, surprising Hayato. "It goes without question just how much help you would have been on Friday. Ida isn't as fast as you, and you would have been able to take out more villains than any of us. I could barely make those assholes turn on each other when you could have easily knocked them out. I'm gonna outshine you when the festival happens, you can count on that." Hitoshi turned around to leave, not noticing Hayato was beginning to tremble while clenching his fists. Once he was gone, Hayato fell to the ground and began punching it as hard as he could with the side of his fists, before letting out a loud scream signifying his guilt and frustration. "Oh, Hayato, dinner is ready," Inko said as Hayato walked in, covered in dirt and scratches. He nodded and went to the table, seeing a plate with a fish on it and a bowl of rice. "If you want more I can dash," It's perfect, you're doing enough for me as it is. Hayato said as he grabbed a pair of chopsticks and began digging in. You've been like a second son to me and a brother to Izuku. If anyone's done enough for anyone, it's you for us. Inko said as she ran her hands through his hair. I know this isn't the right time, but the funeral date is set for next Sunday. Is that fine with you? It's fine. Will both of you come with me? Of course. Inko said as she walked into the kitchen to start washing dishes. But you know, I mean what I said. Anything, the hope you gave Izuku when you came into our lives saved me from the guilt about that quirkless diagnosis. I began eating out of guilt. If I had continued, I may have gained a few pounds. Inko said as Hayato looked at her confused, as from when he had met her, she had always been a slender woman. But when you came and told me you were going to make sure he could be a hero, no matter what, I was relieved. It was like God had sent me the answer to my prayers with you because the way you had said those words, somehow I knew you meant it. But I didn't really do anything. It was all him. But you were there to protect him from bullies, you always looked on the brighter side of things, you gave him hope like that All Might video never could, because someone actually knew that he could be a hero. Inko said as she dried her hands. She walked out of the kitchen and looked at the boy with a warm smile. I would have loved to adopt you, but your grandfather was adamant that your new guardian was more than up for taking care of you. But until they're ready, this is your home. Even then, this will always be your home. Thank you, I appreciate it. Hayato said as he finished up his dinner and looked around, realizing his best friend was nowhere to be found. And Izuku? He's down at Dagoba Beach, he said when you finished eating. To go see him, he said he had something to show you. Izuku? Hayato asked as he made his way down to the sand at Dagoba Beach. He looked around before a green blur landed in front of him, revealing Izuku with a victorious grin on his face. What's this? I did it, I finally did it. At an output of 5%, this is one for all, full cowling. Izuku said as the energy of one for all surged through his body in a constant stream as green energy sparked off him. I've spent all weekend trying to master it and now I have one for all coursing through every part of my body. Nice. Hayato said before turning around. Where are you going? Home, I want to relax after a long day. Hayato said as he walked up to the steps to leave. Izuku landed in front of him and looked at him with a serious demeanor. What are you doing? I know you're hurting, but is being such a dick really worth it? Izuku said, making Hayato grit his teeth. Izuku, I'm exhausted. Is that not clear? It's not, you want to avoid me, that's what it is. It's the sports festival, isn't it? Izuku asked while Hayato stayed quiet. Why are you so worried about the festival? Do you think a pro will not see how amazing you are? Izuku asked, walking up to him. I just barely got the hang of this power, you've had yours for years. What are you so worried about? Do you think this is all about impressing some heroes? Do you think that's all I care about? Izuku flinched as Hayato snapped. Damn it, Izuku, why can't you understand? You're not just my best friend, you're more than that, you're my damn brother. I was nothing but useless when you all needed me on Friday. Everybody I left behind all got hurt in some way and it even took my grandpa from me. Hayato yelled as tears welled up in his eyes. You got hurt. Achiko was hurt. Ida was shook up for once. And Momo could have been killed. Both of you could have been killed. I could have helped you. I could have done everything I could to help all of you. What kind of hero leaves the people he cares about behind? Hayato yelled, letting his tears fall. Mr. Aizawa is hurt and broken nearly everywhere. Even All Might's limit is barely at an hour now. I could have prevented that. Hayato, you don't know that. Izuku said, reaching for him. Hayato slapped his hand away and fell to his knees on the sand. I do know that. I'm the fastest person in class, even if I didn't go top speed. I could have helped everyone out and still had the energy to keep going. I can't look anyone in class in the eyes without thinking about how safe they would have been if I had just shown up to class. And then what? Your grandpa dies at home and you feel guilty about that instead? Izuku yelled, making Hayato stop screaming. No one blames you, no one expects a lot from you, but that doesn't mean you should beat yourself up over it. Damn it, Hayato, I understand perfectly what you mean. But what does that festival have to do with anything? It's my chance to be better than I already am. To see if I have what it takes to make my old man proud. I don't want to win, but I don't want to lose either. Then don't lose. Your grandpa died happily knowing that his last day was spent with the person he loved the most in the world. But if he was here right now, he'd kick your ass for being like this. Izuku yelled, making Hayato stand and wipe his tears. If you think you would have protected us on Friday, then go ahead and think that. But what I know is that the moment I saw those villains walk through that warp guy's portal, I knew that I was relieved that you were safe from harm. You know how useful I could have been to all of you. Why are you acting like I wouldn't? I never said you wouldn't have been. What I'm saying is that what happened already happened. You don't need to beat yourself up over it. Izuku said, placing a hand on his shoulder. Looking at all the villains that showed up, I realized just how inexperienced we really are. The hero world isn't sunshine and rainbows, it's an unforgiving place that will chew you up and spit you out if you're not prepared for it. As the next symbol of peace, it's my duty to be prepared so that whatever dangers come our way again will be dealt with. Izuku was met with silence. But if that's really what's bothering you, then be someone he would definitely be proud of. Izuku said before turning to look at the ocean. He sat down on the sand to look at the moon's reflection on the water while Hayato did the same. All Might told me he had used up most of his time in his muscle form by dealing with crimes that morning. He was supposed to be at USJ to begin with, but he had to take a break to build up some stamina. Even if you were there, All Might would have still had to push himself to fight a villain that had multiple quirks at once. The same goes for what happened with Mr. Aizawa and 13, they jumped into action to try to give us a chance to escape. They wound up being overpowered, and even if you were there, they would have risked their lives to make sure you were safe too. Everyone had an issue that pushed us to know what it means to be a hero, to know just how deadly villains can truly be. But what you saw was the other aspect of it, the feeling where you know you could help someone but you know you can't be everywhere at once. You can't save everyone, but you can always help someone. I just know I could have helped. Then be that kind of hero. Hayato looked at Izuku, surprised by his statement. You have the speed to do it, you might not be able to reach everyone, but be a hero that saves everyone he can reach. Just like you saved me all those years ago. Seeing you like this, it just bothers me. You called me the smarter one out of the two of us, but you're also the most optimistic out of us. You had the heart of a hero from the very beginning, you can't just let one moment bring you down. Izuku said, standing up. He turned and extended his hand to his best friend, who then grabbed it tightly. You and I are gonna be at the top of the sports festival. And we're gonna do it, together. What was it Bakugo said once? Hayato asked as he stood up with Izuku's help. Deku and Speed Freak, pair of losers who'll stay at the bottom. We have a chance to show him and the world. We'll show them the next generation has what it takes. We're gonna stand at the top, and with your strength and my speed, together we'll look at them and say, we're here. During the next 2 weeks after Aizawa announced the sports festival, all of Class 1A spent their free time trying to enhance their abilities. As Aizawa had said later on, this was only one of 3 chances to show pro heroes and the world what they could do, so they began dedicating themselves to physical and mental training to reach for the top. But the 4 who were putting in the most work, at least in the eyes of their teachers and classmates, were Shoto Todoroki, Katsuki Bakugo, Hayato Kiryu, and Izuku Midoriya. Shoto spent most of his time training his right side, increasing the speed and power of the ice he could create from it. Katsuki began to work on strengthening his explosions by spending hours on end firing them until his muscles couldn't handle the strain. But Hayato and Izuku were the ones they were most surprised by, especially All Might. He'd spent his free time looking over them and seeing how the two began practicing how to use their quirks in combat. Izuku spent his time keeping the force of his attacks at the 5% limit he set on himself while also adapting to his newfound speed that would rival his best friend's. Meanwhile, Hayato was learning to use his speed to increase the force of his attacks, while also setting his own limit as to how to keep a constant speed without draining all of his energy in seconds. Both began to show up to class with marks and bruises, but their training was proving to be the most effective for them as they neared Kazuma's funeral. They would begin the moment they were allowed to train on campus, before heading home and continuing their practice at Dagoba Beach, where they would either race on the sand to increase their speed or spar in the water to increase the muscles in their arms and legs. Seeing how dedicated they were, All Might couldn't help but contact his former mentor, Sorahiko, to let him know about their progress. Sorahiko had already agreed to go to the sports festival in person to see his grandson for once, but now he was interested in Izuku and curious to see how the fruits of their training will show once the day arrived. "Boys, are you ready?" Inko asked, dressed in a black dress, as she knocked on Izuku's bedroom door. The door opened to reveal Izuku and Hayato both wearing all black suits and ties. Today was Kazuma's funeral, and 5 days before the UA Sports Festival. They made their way out of the apartment and downstairs to where a dark green-haired man wearing a suit similar to the boys stood by a waiting car. "Hisashi." "Inko." "Izuku." "Hayato." Hisashi said before planting a kiss on Inko's forehead. "Dad." Izuku said, hugging his father. "Hisashi." Hayato said, shaking his hand. "Thank you for coming. Your grandfather treated me well the times I came to visit. It's the least I could do." Hisashi said before opening the door for his wife to enter. The two entered the back seat while Hisashi entered the driver's side and the four left to where Kazuma's funeral was being held. "Dad, how long are you staying?" Izuku asked as they came to a red light. He bit his lip from disappointment as he remembered how his father took a position abroad and rarely came home unless it was the holidays, his wedding anniversary, or any of their birthdays. He sat back as he knew the answer was going to be the same as always. 2 days, then he has to return to work in California. "I dunno. Maybe long enough to see my son compete in the UA Sports Festival." Hisashi said, making the eyes from the other three widen. "I wasn't here to congratulate you for making it in, I wish I was. I know I haven't been around much in your life, but I saved up my vacation days to be here until next Sunday. This is one of the biggest moments in my only son's life. What kind of father would I be if I missed out on that?" Hisashi said, making Inko and Izuku tear up. "I set my DVR back in America to record it so I can show it to my friends when I go back, but I got tickets for me and your mother to see both of you compete that day." "Hayato," a balding old man said as the Midoriyas and Hayato reached the church and exited their car. He walked over and hugged the boy, who returned the hug. "Dr. Ishida, is everyone here?" Hayato asked, earning a nod from the old man. He looked inside to see everyone his grandfather had ever been friends with, work with, even the neighbors who he had been on good terms with were all in attendance. "But I want you to know that they're here too." "You don't mean?" Inko and Izuku asked, earning a nod from the doctor. Hayato looked past the crowd to see a white-haired woman and a black-haired man, both of who were talking to the neighbor who had known Kazuma the longest as well as his old boss. "Hayato, are those your parents?" Hisashi asked, earning a nod from the younger Kiryu. "Tawa and Reito Kiryu, the parents who ditched me a long time ago," Hayato said before Dr. Ishida placed a hand on his back. "Son, I wanted you to know that you and your father will be both giving speeches today. If you want, you can go after him, but Kazuma said that the person he wanted the most to speak when he passed was you." "I will, don't worry. My father was an amazing man," Reito said as he began to give his eulogy to the crowd, an hour after the service had begun. He knew that there was nothing more satisfying than a hard day's work. "He used to tell me that nothing in this world is free and that there is no form of currency in the world that is not earned easily. After my mother divorced him, I thought his world was going to end. And I was nearly right. I saw my father enter a depression that I thought he would never come back from. But I guess once he saw that I had found the woman of my dreams, he had found a new meaning to his life because he actually seemed happy for once. I may not have been in contact with him for a while, but there is no part of me that doesn't miss him and wish we had solved our differences before he passed." "Thank you," Reito said, earning claps from the crowd, and made his way back to his seat next to his wife. Dr. Ishida then stood up and walked up to the front, clearing his throat. "As Kazuma's best friend, I would like one more person to come up and say a few words. Kazuma's grandson, Hayato." Tawa and Reito gasped as they had finally seen their son after nearly 13 years. With Tawa especially seeing the resemblance he shared with her father, especially from the height and spiky white hair he now had. "Thank you, my grandpa was I don't know what to say honestly. Hayato said as he took out a piece of paper to begin reading off it. He sighed and crumpled the paper, throwing it towards Izuku. He caught it and handed it to his father, who quickly put it in his hands and blew a small stream of fire, quickly burning it. Hayato rubbed his eyes and jammed his hands into his pockets, looking at the photo of the old man behind him as well as his coffin. He was everything to me. He was the only father figure I ever had. He was the one who used to go to my room when I had a nightmare and be with me until I slept. He used to take me to the park to play when he saw that I was bored. He never once gave up on me, even considering how old he was becoming. He retired early to raise me, and I didn't know about that until recently. He told me that I had saved him from giving up on life, and I think he was wrong. I think he was the one who saved me from giving up. There's not a second now that I don't miss him, that I wake up in my new home and think he's going to open the door and say it's time to go back home. But it doesn't mean I'm giving up. Everything I have now is thanks to him. He took a deep breath to compose himself while the Midoriyas smiled at him, as did everyone else listening. The values he taught me got me into the best high school in all of Japan. I'm currently enrolled in the hero course of UA High thanks to what he taught me. The respect he taught me to give has me in good standing with my teachers and the people currently taking care of me. The love he gave me is now the love I have for the people who've been by my side and cared for me as long as I can remember, even the people who are standing by my side right now. From just spending time with him for so long, he gave me the courage to follow my dreams and become a hero. I know he's watching over me right now like a guardian angel, and I will forever cherish the time I spent with him. As the grandson of Kazuma Kiryu, I swear on this day to be a hero that's fast enough to reach everyone that needs my help. He always believed I will be a great hero, and in memory of my grandpa, that's exactly what I'll spend the rest of my life trying to be. Thank you all for coming, Hayato said before bowing to the crowd. The crowd erupted into applause as many teared up seeing Hayato as a younger version of Kazuma during his speech. He took his seat next to Izuku, who happily patted his back while Hisashi proudly nodded at him and Inko wiped tears from her eyes. Following Hayato's speech, the service then ended as the coffin was then taken to be cremated. The four stayed and said one last goodbye to Kazuma's tombstone before returning to their car. But before Hisashi pulled out, he noticed Rado and Tawa walking towards their car and turned to look at Hayato in the back seat. I know you might say no, but do you maybe want to talk to your parents? He was met with silence and Hayato shaking his head. It was only a question. I'm not gonna make you, Hisashi said before putting the car in reverse and driving off back to their home. As they drove off, Hayato had made eye contact with his parents, who looked at him in surprise before it changed to disappointment. Do you think we should have said something to him back there? Rado asked, looking at his wife. She shook her head and let out a deep sigh. Your father was the only one to ever give him a parent's love. After we left him behind, I knew we had made a mistake by doing that to him. But when I saw him today, all I saw was my own father. Was that bad? No. It made me realize that I had a mistake leaving my dad alone too. I don't think either of them will ever forgive me for hurting them that way, Tawa said as she entered their car. I still love my father to this day, the same with Hayato. My teenage angst got in the way and cost me the two most important people in my life. Hayato will forgive us one day, and I know Sorahiko definitely still loves you too, Rado said, rubbing his wife's back as she began to cry. How do you know? My dad was never one to hold a grudge. If our son is anything like either of our dads, he will find it within himself to forgive us. And Sorahiko told you the day you left. His door will always be open to you. He might be an old man now, but that old man still took care of you after losing the love of his life, Rado said before looking at the envelope in the cup holder with the UA logo on it. I just hope he won't be mad if he finds out. Today was the day Class 1A had spent the past 2 weeks preparing themselves day and night for the UA Sports Festival. It was early in the morning, yet crowds were already pouring in to fill the stadium, whether it was heroes, civilians, or the media. Inko and Hisashi had already dropped off Izuku and Hayato, so the two were already in the locker rooms, getting ready with everyone else. The talk of the town was to keep their eyes on the first years, more specifically Class 1A. Following the attack on USJ, There was doubt as to whether holding such a public event was a smart idea for UA. But Principal Nizu along with the other faculty assured everyone that security was quintupled and no harm was to befall anyone that day. Are you guys ready? Ijiro asked as he slammed his fist into his hand. I wonder what's gonna happen in the first round. Mina said as she and Mashireo were stretching. It doesn't matter, we have to work with whatever cards they deal us. Fumikage said as he sat down calmly. The door then slammed open to reveal Tenya running into the room. Everyone, are you ready? We will be entering soon. Tenya announced, making everyone who was sitting down stand up. Izuku took a deep breath and prepared to head out before someone caught his attention. Midoriya, Shoto said as he walked up to him. This surprised everyone, especially Hayato, Katsuki, and Achiko. Looking at things objectively, I think I'm stronger than you. Echa? I'm not sure how to respond to that. All Might has his eye on you, doesn't he? Shoto asked, catching both of All Might's disciples off guard. I'm not trying to pry about that. But I'm going to beat you. Shoto said as he gave Izuku an ice-cold glare. Oh, is the best in the class making a declaration of war? Denki asked as Ijiro walked over to the two. Come on, why are you picking a fight all of a sudden? Everything's about to start. Ijiro said, placing his hand on Shoto's shoulder. He responded by pushing his hand off and continued glaring at Izuku. We're not here to play at being friends. So why does it even matter? Shoto asked before beginning to walk away. Todoroki, I don't know what you're thinking when you say you'll beat me, but it's clear you were better than me. You're more capable than anyone else, and looking at it objectively, you are the superior person in every way. Izuku said before he stared at Shoto, with determination burning in his eyes. I'm going to give everything I've got today. If that's what we're doing. Hayato said as he walked over to where Hitoshi and Katsuki were both sitting. Then I want both of you to bring it on. Hitoshi just smirked at this while Katsuki glared at him. He smirked and stood up, keeping his eyes locked onto him. I'm gonna crush you, and then I'll take down Deku and that icy hot bastard. Then you better stay at the top. Hayato said, walking past Katsuki. Hey! Present Mick's voice echoed through the stadium, making the audience erupt into cheers. Pay attention, audience. Swarm, mass media. This year's high school rodeo of adolescence that you all love, the UA Sports Festival, is about to begin. Everybody, are you ready? It's time for the students to enter the first-year stage. Trumpets began to sound and the crowd and faculty watched intently as Class 1A proudly walked into the middle of the arena with Hayato and Izuku leading the pack. It's the huge battle where fledgling heroes sharpen their swords once a year. The miraculous new stars who overcame enemy attacks with their hearts of steel. Everyone give a big round of applause for Hero Courses Class 1A. Hisashi and Inko began to cheer loudly as they spotted the two, while on the other side of the stadium, Rado and Tawa sat and immediately located their son. They haven't been getting as much air time, but this class is also full of talent. Hero Courses Class 1B. Next up, General Studies Classes C, D, and E. Support Courses Classes F, G, and H are here too. And finally, Business Courses Classes I, J, and K. All of UA's first years are here now. The middle of the arena then filled up as the remaining first-year students as the crowd began applauding louder. Time for the player pledge. The majority of the male students and even the men in the crowd all fought blushes or controlling themselves as a woman wearing a skin-tight white bodysuit under dominatrix clothing walked onto a metal stage with a whip in her hand. Someone should talk to Ms. Midnight about what she's wearing. Ijiro said as both he and Denki were both blushing at the woman as well. That costume should come with a warning label. Is that really appropriate apparel for a high school event? Fumikage asked, making Hayato shake his head. Quiet. Representing the students is Katsuki Bakugo from Class 1A. Midnight announced, making Katsuki begin to walk over to where she stood. Everyone in Class 1A hesitantly watched as they knew what Katsuki was about to announce to everyone. I pledge to be number one. Katsuki said, plainly making everyone in Class 1A sigh or scream. I knew he'd do that. The crowd of students then erupted into boos or insults while Katsuki kept his back turned to them. "Why are you doing something so disgraceful?" Tenya asked, angrily waving his arm at Katsuki. "At least be a nice bouncy step for me to jump off of," Katsuki said as he walked down to rejoin the crowd. "You see what he's doing, Izuku?" Hayato asked, earning a nod from his best friend. "He's driving himself into a corner." Katsuki walked past them and bumped shoulders with both of them. "But it's just like him to get everyone tangled in his mess. Now, let's get started right away. Every year, many drink their own tears here. Now, here's the first game," Midnight announced as a screen appeared behind her, with a roulette spinning on it. "This year it's..." The roulette stopped and revealed the first game of the festival. The obstacle race. All 11 classes will participate. The course will be the outer circumference of the stadium, about 4 kilometers. The screen then showed the outside of the stadium, and a circle with 3 different points highlighted as arrows went through them. "The selling point of our school is freedom, so as long as you stay on the course, it doesn't matter what you do." A nearby gate opened and all the students crowded in front of it as they prepared themselves to run. 3 green lights lit up above the gate, and as quickly as they turned on, 1 light turned off. Then the other. The majority of the students took a deep breath as the last light was ready to turn off. "Start!" The last light went off and all hell broke loose as all the students tried forcing themselves through the small exit at once, shoving each other to make it through first. "Okay, here's the play-by-play. Are you ready to do the commentary, mummy man?" Present Mike asked as he turned to see the still bandaged Aizawa sitting next to him. "You're the one who forced me to come. Let's get started right away, mummy man. What should we pay attention to in the early stages?" "This part right now." Inside the exit, it was absolute carnage. Every student trying to force their way through, separating all of Class 1A. The next thing they all knew, a blast of cold air went through the exit and to the outside, freezing the majority of the students in place. Shoto then burst through as the ground behind him froze. "If you can't handle that, then there's no way you deserve to be a hero," Shoto yelled before turning around. To see Mashireo jumping, Katsuki propelling himself off the ground, and Momo creating a pole to vault over the ice. "Hold up!" Katsuki yelled before 2 blurs rushed past them on the walls. The ones currently running minus for Shoto stopped running and watched in shock as they recognized the blurs. "What's this?" The crowd watched in amazement as the cameras focused and saw that Hayato and Izuku were running on the walls using their quirks until they passed Shoto. The 3 stopped as the ground began to rumble, and from it, the robot villains from the practical exam appeared with 3 zero-pointers towering over them. The first obstacle is called Robo Infer Dash. Present Mike was cut off as the 3 leaders activated their quirks. "Out of my way!" Hayato ran past the villains, Izuku used full cowling to punch through the legs of Zero-Pointer, and Shoto froze another in place and ran past it. The Zero-Pointers that both Izuku and Shoto attacked crashed into one another and into the ground, blocking off the path for the other students. The first ones through the first barrier are Shoto Todoroki, Hayato Kiryu, and Izuku Midoriya from Class 1A. Present Mike announced, making the crowd cheer, especially Inko, while Hisashi looked at his son in shock. But how will they fare against the second obstacle? All 3 arrived at the second obstacle and looked at the makeshift canyon with poles connecting around to the platforms leading to the other side. "This isn't gonna slow me down." Shoto jumped onto one of the poles and began to slide forward by creating ice under his right foot and making more behind him to push him. "That goes for me too," Izuku yelled as he activated full cowling and began to jump across to each platform as quickly as Shoto was making it to them too. "Wait, you bastards!" Hayato took a step back and activated his quirk before doing the same as Izuku until all 3 reached the other side. But when they turned around, Katsuki was hot on their tails in the air, firing explosion after explosion to boost himself. "Damn it!" Katsuki yelled as he landed behind them and joined the 3 to fight for first. And now it's time for the last barrier, a minefield. It's set up so that you can tell where the mines are if you look carefully. Present Mike announced as the 4 reached a long strip of land with raised clumps of dirt visible across every inch of it. "This doesn't affect me," Katsuki yelled as he jumped forward and used his explosions to soar through the air. Wait, Bakugo! Shoto yelled as he froze the ground in front of him to make a walkway. I'm not gonna lose. Izuku yelled as he used full cowling to jump across the ground, narrowly missing each mine. This isn't where I fall behind. Hayato yelled as he ran through the minefield, even stepping on the mines, but narrowly avoiding the pink explosions that followed. The four quickly made their way through the last obstacle before feeling their powers reach their limits. They deactivated their quirks once they were clear of the minefield and ran as fast as they could through the home stretch leading back to the stadium. These kids are insane. The other first years are barely past the second obstacle. What are you even teaching them, Eraser? I didn't do anything. They fired themselves up on their own. Aizawa said as he, while no one could see it happen, proudly watched his four students enter the hallway. To be number one, it's all anyone wants. But my students shoot for the top by challenging one another. UA Sports Festival, first year stage. Who could have predicted how this turned out? The first person back in the stadium is. The crowd watched as out of the four shadows becoming more visible through the entrance, only one kept the lead before running back into the sunlight. Izuku Midoriya. The crowd erupted into cheers while Hisashi and Inko proudly hugged each other seeing their son had won the first event of the sports festival. Izuku turned to meet the gaze of his mentor and saw the pride and excitement in his eyes as Hayato patted his back. He turned around to see the results and saw that following him, Shoto had made it, then Hayato, and finally Katsuki. Damn it! Katsuki yelled as he grabbed his forearm in pain. What was that power? Shoto asked as he stopped to take a breath while a cold mist came off his right side. He looked at Izuku in shock before walking away. Now the remaining contestants are coming in one by one. Deku! Hayato and Izuku turned around to see Achiko running up to them. That was amazing. How can you two run on walls? Hayato thought about it, and if we both go as fast as possible, we can run on the wall for a few seconds. Izuku explained, hiding a blush from his friend, but Hayato caught it and began to snicker. Oh look, Yaoyorozu arrived. Hayato turned to see the entrance and covered his mouth in shock as Momo's shirt was open from the front while she trudged in. Izuku snickered as elbowed Hayato on the arm teasingly, only to be met with an elbow to the gut. The top 42 made it to the second round. Don't worry if you didn't make it. We'll have more activities for you all to participate in later on. But now it's time to reveal the second event, the cavalry battle. Midnight announced after the results showed that both classes 1A and 1B had passed to the second round, along with 2 extras from the support course. No way! Denki said, exhausted from the first event. This cavalry battle will be point-based. Depending on the placement you got when you came in, you'll be awarded a set amount of points. And for coming in first place, Izuku Midoriya is worth 10 million points. Midnight announced, freezing Izuku in place. 10 million? Izuku felt all eyes turn to him as if he was injured prey against a pack of 41 predators. Each team is worth the points of its members. Each player will be given a headband that must stay on their forehead or from the neck up. The headbands are easy to remove, but the more you score, the harder it will be to manage them. If your team loses all their points or if your team falls, you're not out. But since it's still a cavalry battle, you'll get a red card for attacks that are trying to make people fall on purpose and immediately disqualified. Midnight announced, making the majority of the participants look at her in surprise. You have 15 minutes to build your teams. Start. Izuku. Izuku turned to see Hayato smiling at him. Let's do this. What? Aren't you worried about winning? We'll be the main targets. Stop being such a spoil sport. If we team up, we'll have the chance to make it to the tournament without question. I'm worth 200 points for coming in third. Everybody who knows what he can do wants Bakugo because they know his quirk has several purposes in a battle like this. Hayato said before looking around, seeing the majority of the people had already begun to form their teams. With you as a rider and me as a horse, we'll be able to either avoid or steal other headbands. But shouldn't we also get them? Izuku asked as he noticed Tenya and Achiko nearby. Achiko would be perfect. If she makes us lighter, then it'll definitely help us out in the speed department. But I'm not so sure about Ida. Hayato said as he saw Tenya head over to where Shoto and Momo were. Since the beginning we've been outshining him, especially me since I'm the only other speedster. If he wants to stand out, he'll want to avoid us, otherwise he'd just feel like our shadow. I see. Izuku said before Hayato waved Achiko over. Achiko, come on, we want you on our team. Really? Achiko asked as she happily ran over to them. Really? Hayato said as he happily placed a hand on her head. He didn't notice that Momo was watching and she quickly looked away to turn her attention to her team. But we need one more person, we need someone who can provide the power we're missing. Speed isn't enough, we need to be able to repel and go on the offensive when the situation calls for it. Izuku said before turning to his side, looking at Fumikage who was standing alone. Tokoyami, will you join our team? A team with the three of you? Sounds interesting. Fumikage said before nodding. I accept. Start. Midnight announced as the 15 minutes were up and all 11 teams made their way to the team of Izuku, Achiko, Fumikage, and Hayato. Tokoyami! Izuku yelled as he turned the headbands inside out and put one around his forehead. You got it. Dark Shadow. A bird-like purple mass came from Fumicage's chest and reached for the ground away from the teams, effortlessly pulling them closer. By using Uraraka's quirk to make us float, it makes mobility easier for us. Izuku said before the ground began to pull Dark Shadow in. Good luck getting away from that. A pale boy with beige hair and his teeth visible on his face said as Fumikage recalled Dark Shadow. Who needs luck? Fumikage said as Dark Shadow reached for another part of the ground and pulled them towards it. Good job. Achiko said happily before seeing Shoto's team running towards them. Bogeys at 3 o'clock. Izuku yelled, making Hayato roll his eyes. Yeah. Achiko. Release. Achiko pressed her fingertips together before quickly touching everyone but Hayato again. Gotta run. Hayato activated his quirk and ran past Team Shoto, as Izuku ripped a headband off of Todoroki's neck. Got one. But we got yours. Izuku turned to see a blonde-haired boy and his team running towards them, recognizing them from Class 1B. That's what you think. Hayato smirked and strafed to the side, narrowly avoiding him grabbing one of the headbands across Izuku's neck. Curse my aged bladder. Sorahiko said as he walked out of the men's restroom. As he made his way back to the faculty area, where he was allowed to sit being a retired UA teacher, he noticed a familiar white-haired woman making her way to the women's restroom. Tawa? Tawa froze in place and turned to see her aged father, now smaller with age, who was looking at her in shock. Papa? My sweet Tawa, what are you doing here? Sorahiko asked before they heard an explosion coming from the battle along with Katsuki's insults. The same you probably are, to see my son. Does he know you're here? Sorahiko asked, resting on his cane. No. Reito and I want to speak to him when we have the chance. You've seen what he can do? Sorahiko asked, earning a nod from his daughter. I never thought the quirk I inherited from you combined with Reito's supercharged quirk would combine into super speed. Tawa said, looking down at the ground. It wasn't mine, he has your mother's in him. Tawa looked at him in surprise as he looked up at her and scratched his beard. Reito and Kazuma could use their quirks to supercharge their muscles. I used Jet to propel myself in the air, but your mother could travel at superhuman speeds because she had an insane metabolism. Hayato has a mix of your mother's and their quirks to use his electrolytes to augment his abilities and his speed while keeping a normal human body. Sorahiko explained before looking at his daughter. He's amazing, he has immense potential if he has even a bit of my quirk within him. But as to how he is, I'm afraid Kazuma left me in the dark about it. Kazuma told you about him? Bah. I'm legally his new guardian, I'm not going to take in someone I don't know. Tawa's eyes widened and her lip began to quiver hearing this. But, know that my door will always be open to you if you want to see me or him. I can already tell that he has no hate for you, give him time to mourn Kazuma before you both try entering his life. Papa, are you sure? You're my only child, why would I deny you such a thing when I can clearly see how much you feel like you made a mistake? Sorahiko said before beginning to walk away. You should head back quickly, I think we're in for a rousing finale. Izuku, I can't go use my power anymore now. Hayato said as they only had 2 minutes remaining and still maintained their lead with only Fumicage's 180 points and Achiko's 135 points being taken from them by Katsuki and Shoto's teams. Only 4 teams kept their points, the remaining 8 wound up losing their points to the other teams except Team Midoriya. You did a good job playing keep away, we can't ask for anything more from you. Fumicage said before the 4 quickly dodged acid being shot by Mina on Team Bakugo. Suddenly a wall of ice formed on the side they jumped towards making Achiko and Izuku hit their heads against it. Uraraka, are you okay? Izuku asked as Achiko rubbed her head in pain. My head hurts. Sorry about that, but we're taking your 10 million points now. Shoto said as his team of Tenya, Momo, and Denki rushed towards them. Dark Shadow. Fumicage launched Dark Shadow away to escape but Denki chuckled and began to emit his electricity, making Dark Shadow return to him. Damn it. With the light Kaminari gives off, Dark Shadow can't do anything. Too bad your points are ours. Katsuki yelled as he jumped towards them with tape wrapped around his abdomen. No way they're ours. The 4 turned around to see a gray-haired boy that they recognized from Class 1B heading towards them. Achiko, let's throw Izuku in the air. Hayato yelled, shocking all of them, but Achiko nodded and the 2 threw Izuku in the air, going higher and higher thanks to her quirk. What are you doing? Izuku and Shoto yelled before Hayato swapped places with Fumicage, now leading the charge. They looked up to see Katsuki hot on Izuku's trail, ready to take all 3 remaining headbands in one go. Tokoyami, pull him in. Dark Shadow. Dark Shadow quickly grabbed Izuku and pulled him back on top of the 3 of them as Hayato took a deep breath. Too bad, Kiryu, I've been working on this for a while now. There's no one better to use it on. Tenya said as the exhaust ports on his calves fired up. Hold on tight. His 3 teammates held on as blue fire began firing from his exhaust ports. Recipro burst. Team Todoroki shot past where Team Midoriya once stood and smiled as they looked at 2 headbands in Shoto's hands. Is that really the best you got? The 4 turned around in shock to see Hayato weakly smiling at them as Team Midoriya stood on the far side of the stadium. Izuku chuckled and flipped up his last headband, revealing it to be the 10 million points they were fighting hard to keep. Too bad. It's mine. The group looked up to see Katsuki was about to grab the headband from him. Time's up. Present Mike announced as Katsuki had just barely touched the headband before being pulled back by Hanta. Damn it. Shoto said as he jumped off his teammates, glaring at Team Midoriya. Now, let's take a look at the top 4 teams right away. In first place, Team Midoriya. The crowd erupted into cheers as Izuku proudly held up the 10 million point headband. In second place, Team Todoroki. In third place, Team Bakugo. In fourth place, Team Tetsu. Present Mike announced as the points for the teams were shown on the screen. We'll be taking an hour break for lunch before we start the last event. Good job out there today. Fumicage said as he, Achiko, and Hayato all left the stadium to get food. Your immense speed mixed with Uraraka's zero gravity? Quite an amazing match indeed. You did a great job. I don't think Dark Shadow minded being a makeshift grappling gun, did he? Hayato asked as he opened his sports drink bottle to drink some. I would have liked fighting instead. Dark Shadow yelled as he appeared from Fumicage's abdomen. When you've got something as valuable as we did, you gotta play it safe. Achiko said as she happily pet him. Kiryu. The 3 turned to see Tenya walking over to them. I had risked it all to beat you, and in the end, I still ended up outclassed by you. Tenya said as he pointed to his exhaust ports that were currently sputtering. If I didn't use everything I had left to get us away from you guys, you would have won for sure. Hayato said as he quickly finished his sports drink. I don't think that I could even consider reaching that speed again today, even if it was only for a second. My body is gonna hurt tomorrow. Well then, let's go get some lunch to ease this tension. Achiko happily suggested, making the 3 nod. Where's Deku? Todoroki wanted to talk to him, he'll meet us there. So, what's up next after this? Ijiro asked as he sat with Fumicage, Tenya, Achiko, and Hayato to have lunch. After the first 2 qualifiers, The remaining 16 students fight in a tournament. Tenya said as he remembered who had passed. That would be you, Ashido, Siro, and Bakugo. Our team of Yaoyorozu, Kaminari, Todoroki, and myself of course. Midoriya, Tokoyami, Kiryu, and Uraraka from their team. And from Class 1B's team it would be Tetsu, Awaze, Hananuki, and Shiozaki. It's gonna be pretty exciting to watch, Ribbit. Tsuyu said as she joined the group at their table. Gonna be pretty tough, honestly. Hayato said as he placed a spoonful of rice in his mouth. You're afraid of fighting Deku, aren't you? Achiko asked, making Hayato shake his head. I'm not afraid of it, I'm worried about it. Izuku and I have been friends since we were 4. When you put it into perspective, that's 11 years of friendship and brotherhood. I wanna win, so I won't hesitate or hold back against him. But, who's to say Midoriya will? Fumikage spoke up, earning a nod from the group. Sometimes even the strongest bonds can overpower the will to win. We've just barely got the hang of his powers. I need him to fight me with everything he has so that he can keep learning to control it. Besides, Achiko might want him to show off for her. Hayato said before continuing to eat, this time turning the topic of conversation to the girl sitting next to him. Wait, what? Ijiro asked in disbelief before bursting into laughter. Achiko likes Midoriya, Ribbit. No way you do? Ijiro asked, making Achiko bury her face in her hands. Holy shit. You two should be a thing. Who knows if they already are? Hayato said plainly. Achiko slapped him in retaliation only for him to begin floating. Achiko. Oh, I'm so sorry. Release. Achiko deactivated her quirk only for Hayato to fall down and hit his back on the chair. Is this karma? Hayato asked as he stood up, holding his back in pain. Is speed healing one of the things your quirk can do? Achiko asked, holding her hands up. I wish.